It's the fourth day of the week, and here we are as always on your favorite morning show, Benjamin and Bernard, serving you the AM show. It's another morning, and we're glad to have you. Thank you for making the time to join us. Now, coming up shortly, the news. Right after that, the news review, and guess who joins us? One more time, NDC's parliamentary candidate for Southton, Maxwell Lukuto, is our guest. And then from there, we get into sports and then our big stories. Now, today, we take you to the Wale Wale Nalarigu Road, which has been destroyed by heavy rains. Again, hundreds of people in at least 3 villages have been displaced by floods caused by the rains. We'll be bringing you that scoop. We've got a conversation with Member of Parliament for Wa Central as well. He's a stalwart of the opposition NDC, and he'd be joining us to discuss myriad issues of a national scope. Now, also on the show, we'll be speaking to the Ghana Nurse Midwife Trainees Association. Why? They're worried about the delay in the payment of their allowances, the local fuel. They say these allowances haven't been paid for more than 14 months. We'll be hearing from them right here on the AM show. Again, we'll tell you about Abena Krantema and the Oral History Prize named after her. You want to know more? The literary scope is burgeoning in Ghana. We'll be telling you more later on the show as we speak to the organizers for breakfast on the show. Later, as always, we offer you the opportunity of calling in, phoning in, sharing your thoughts with us. But throughout the live stream, be sure to send us your messages. If you want to celebrate anyone this morning, let us know, and I'll be sure to celebrate that person for you. On that note, let's settle for the news, Ghana 4. Up next. Let's settle for the news belt now. And in our first story, there are increasing fears over more coups in West Africa as a member of the ECOWAS Parliament says there is the possibility of 2 more military takeovers before the year ends. Emmanuel Bedra, who is also a member of Parliament for the Whole West constituency, says the prediction was made by experts during the sittings of the ECOWAS Parliament. Niger's elected president, Mohamed Bazoum, was ousted at the end of last month, and the coup leaders have since resisted diplomatic attempts to resolve the crisis.
Because, this is our president, they decide to, pick people who are loyal to them, especially from their tribes.
Right.
And he mentioned that, and it took me aback. And I said, well, it is because we are not including the military hierarchy in decision-making when it comes to political decision. Who's supposed to be your presidential guard? Is it your brother? Is it your family member? Or you just pick people from the military setup and form your presidential guard? Check out from Burkina Faso to Guinea, Conakry to Mali and Niger. They are all presidential guards. And so we are beginning to fear that this movement, 4 of our neighbors, 4 of our brothers who are no longer members of ECOWAS because of the sanction, will affect us economically, militarily, and every sphere of our life in the region.
Okay.
So, it is not today. It is in Niger, and from the analysis that giving us, we have 2 more to go before the end of this year.
2 more coup d'etats to be witnessed.
Yes, 2 coup d'etats to go, and that should be a worrying trend to all of us. In fact, from all the speakers who came to talk to us, we have 2 more military personnel, 2 more coup d'etats sub-region to go before the end of the year. And so this should be a worrying trend to all of us, whether we agree or not. We had it last year, Abuja, and it has happened. And now they have predicted that there will be 2 more.
Okay. Now, the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin, however, says mistrust in the democratic process is giving rise to tension and civil disobedience in the Ghanaian society. The upsurge of insurgency activities around the country's borders has put Ghana's intelligence agencies on high alert following military takeovers in Mali, Burkina Faso, and recently, Niger. Addressing a public forum on 30 years of parliamentary democracy, the Speaker said the military may not intervene, but there is a potential danger of civil unrest if steps are not taken to address the root causes of these agitations.
Here that the space of development cannot match up to population growth, with a resultant high rate of unemployment and its attendant security risk and instability, which we are witnessing. There are so many others I could add. But let me tell you that because of this, reversal of democratic gains in Burkina Faso, I used to visit the president of Burkina Faso and the parliament and speakers. I used to go there. And I was able to link a number of businessmen from Ghana to their partners in Burkina when I was deputy speaker. Look at what is happening there. Almost about 70% is being controlled by terrorists. So they run the schools, they run the health sector, they do everything there. No government is there. Mali, Guinea, and Niger, these are not palatable narrative for the profile of our sub-region. It's as a result of this that the trust and confidence that voters had in democracy have been trumped. And that is why some of the earlier speakers said some people are preferring military rule to the democracy we are practicing. But even the military men and women, well, in military you don't have women, you have only men, they themselves don't want to intervene because the cost to the military is immeasurable. They kill each other more than they kill the civilians because of the distrust, the injection of disunity among the personnel of the security agencies. So even after they return to constitutional rule, they keep on killing each other. It takes time to settle down. So they know the cost now. They are not interested. What we should be afraid of is civil disobedience and civil revolution.
Now, the national coordinator of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, Dr. Farid Arthur, has disclosed that AfCFTA is working with other stakeholders to create a framework to reduce the many barriers across the country to aid the free movement for business. He said one of the national policy framework talks of trade facilitation, and that component looks at the removal of non-tariff barriers to address the issues of these numerous barriers.
AfCFTA has begun some awareness creation to get businesses understand the need to take advantage of this business opportunity. So far, the coordinating office has held 9 regional conferences and stakeholder engagement on the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Speaking on the sidelines of the conference in Tamale, the national coordinator, Dr. Farid Arthur, said they were working to reduce the barriers on the road, but also mindful of the country's security.
The trade facilitation component looks at the issues of removal or rationalization of non-tariff barriers. Some of these barriers are necessary. You know the issues about security and other things in the region. But some of them obviously can be managed. And so we are undertaking various studies, and we are working also with the various stakeholders, including the customs, the immigration, national security, to determine a framework for managing these barriers so that we don't have them unduly. We don't want to remove all of them because of the risk, but we also don't want to have them unduly hindering trade across our border, across our country, and across our borders.
He said the northern region has an advantage when it comes to agro-processing.
Agro-processing is a strong area for the northern region. Already we know the production of rice and other things here is a good base. But we also know about shea butter. Shea butter is one of the well-known products from Ghana, and it originates from here. However, the threat that the presenter pointed out is real. This cutting of shared trees and other things. If we do not have a specific program to nurture the production of shea butter, we could lose that advantage. And
Senior Advisor Monetary and Evaluation Alhaji Yakubu Yusuf on his part said they're working to help move the country from an import country base to a production one.
So there are a lot of things that are happening, a lot of changes that are being made. All that the government of Ghana is doing is to make sure that we increase the capacities of the local manufacturers so that they can add value, so that they can increase production, so that the goods will be available in the market. Do you understand? So that if you have the availability of the products in the market, they can become cheaper and we consume our own goods. Nigeria have been able to consume made in Nigeria rice. Why can't we also do something to consume made in? So gradually we are trying to shift our attention from 100% imported products to products that are locally made.
The Northern Regional Minister, Shani Alhassan Shaibu, called on MMDAs and the various institutions to develop logical support frameworks for these businesses.
I urge you, in this respect, to deliberate on the issues before you with a strategic focus on coming up with actionable recommendations that will derive the development of micro, small and medium enterprises across the northern regions, taking into consideration our natural endowments. I also call on MMDs and other institutions to put in place the needed institutional and logistical support frameworks to ensure that we collectively reap the full benefits from the implementation of the AFTA area agreement.
Now, as part of its conscious effort towards bringing to the doorstep of the consumer a platform where various issues bordering on service delivery of the regulated utilities and appropriate responses to ensure satisfaction for consumers of water and electricity, the Bono Regional Office of the PURC held its maiden Water and Energy Forum in the Techiman municipality of the Bono East region. Regional Manager of the PURC, Patrick Entry, charged service providers, particularly the Ghana Water Company Limited, to enhance its educational campaigns to help instill confidence among its clients. Anas Sabit has more in this report.
Utilities Regulatory Commission, as part of its efforts towards enhancing transparency and interest in its work, as well as promote knowledge and expertise sharing, held its maiden Water and Energy Forum for experts to profess solutions to regulatory challenges. The forum, held in the Techiman municipality of the Bono East region, also provided a platform for consumers to ask questions relating to the mode of operations of the Ghana Water Limited and the Northern Electricity Distribution Company. Patrick Andrew is the regional manager of the PURC.
We thought it wise to make sure that we bring over here the main utility that provides them with those services, which is Ghana Water Company Limited. So what we did was, for our third quarter theme, we named it PURC is here. And at the back of that theme is where we came up with the Water and Energy Forum. So what we try to do is we try to bring on board these utilities to come and ride on our backs to engage people of Techiman municipality. And we believe that it has been very successful. Consumers came with a lot of doubts in their minds. We were here with the regional chief manager and also the regional chief manager for Ghana Water and the area manager for VRA Netco.
He charged these utility companies, particularly the Ghana Water Company Limited, to improve its consumer engagements as part of measures capable of improving trust amongst water users.
We are asking Ghana Water to engage their consumers more. They should come up with an educational program where they try to go into communities, they try to go to various radio stations to speak to their consumers on what they are doing. I always say that if you don't communicate exactly what is going on or exactly what you are doing to help them or to better your service or improve upon your services, consumers wouldn't know. So we are calling on Ghana Water Company Limited in the Bono East, or let me say the Brongahafo region, to beef up their educational activities, to speak to their consumers, to assure consumers of the quality that they are churning out from their water.
Regional manager of the Ghana Water Company Limited, Engineer John Kofi, assured consumers across the area of improved services and asked that the Techiman Water Supply Project will be implemented to solve the age-long difficulty in terms of access across the municipality.
I want to assure them that we do some major means extension within Techiman so that everybody can have access. I also want to assure them that the Techiman Water Supply Project will come on very quickly, if not this year, possibly next year. That one will also come. And when that one comes on, the entire Techiman municipality will have access.
Representative of the Northern Electricity Distribution Company, Nklenyi Beleman, highlighted the effects of power theft to the operations of NEDCO and charged the public to report such characters to the company for handsome rewards.
The person who reports power theft is highly protected because we are not naive to divulge such a person's identity to the public. So we handle it professionally. And what the person gets, one, the person gets self-fulfillment because the citizen is cheating the country. And for that matter, it behoves on us as citizens to protect the nation's assets. And also what we have as a utility for people who give us this information, we have a token for them at the end of the day that we pay to them.
Anas Sabit, Joy News, Techiman.
Various speakers at the Upper West Region's Women's Forum have called for justice for the 12 minors who are alleged to have been sexually assaulted by a 35-year-old alleged pedophile in the Wa municipality of the Upper West Region. According to them, swift and decisive action on the case will serve as a deterrent for others. The alleged pedophile, Rashid Ahmed Anata, was remanded into police custody in Wa last Monday and will reappear at the court on Monday, August the 14th. Joy News' Upper West Regional Correspondent Rafiq Salam reports from Wa.
Speaking at the Upper West Region's Women Forum, senior lecturer in Sociology and Gender Studies at the Simon Diedon Dombo University of Business and Integrated Development Studies, SDDU-based Dr. Constance Awumpaka Akurugu noted that gender-based violence is widespread across all countries in the world, and Ghana is no exception. Narrowing the situation to the Upper West region, Dr. Awumpaka averred that the situation is worse due to the patriarchal nature of the society, who sometimes silence women from talking about the abuses they go through.
Women are often seen as inferior, subordinate to men, and gender-based violence is all situated within this context of the cultural norms that are receptive, that are so tolerant of abuse, forced marriage, widowhood marriage, rape, and economic violence, various kinds of violence that we can think of, emotional, that women go through. And also we live in a context where it is seen as a taboo to talk about issues like gender-based violence, which are often seen as private matters or matters that belong to just the domestic space.
She waded into the issue of 35-year-old alleged pedophile Rashid Ahmed Anata, who is being remanded into police custody and accused of sexual assault on 12 minors. She called on the powers that be to bring him to justice in order to serve as a deterrent for others.
They may not be high and mighty in society, they may not have voices, but we are their voices, and I'm using this opportunity to appeal to all the people who matter in this case to ensure that justice is done and that the judgment is very soon, so that these girls at least will see that justice has been done, so that also people in our region who think that it is okay to take advantage of unsuspecting girls and to violate them, deny them of their innocence and childhood, will see that our region does not have tolerance for sexual violence.
A view shared by the Upper West Regional Director of the Department of Gender, Children and Social Protection, Charity Baturi.
the law enforcement agencies are on his case. Once it's in court, we allow the experts in the court to do what is right. We are counting on justice for these innocent children, and we know we will one day look back and be happy that we fought for the voiceless, and we did what was right when we needed to do it, because the future depends on this generation. What would it benefit you and I if we watch on for their lives to be destroyed?
The Upper West Regions Women's Forum was organized by Network for Women's Pride, NetRight, in partnership with Noble Care Foundation. Focal person for NetRight and lecturer at SDD Yobets, Jane Frances Lobnebe, noted that the biggest challenge faced by women in their region is having access to capital, and which she will want the government to take a serious look at in order to better their lives.
A lot of women, if you look, when the economy is in crisis, it's women who suffer the most. And so with the COVID and the aftermath and all the crisis, financial crisis we have with the banks collapse and all that, if you look at some of the smaller banks that were collapsed, majority of the people heads were women and women-related businesses. And so that has really disempowered a lot of women economically in this region. One of the access to loans and financial resources. That is one of the I think there are fundings and various streams of fundings that are being channeled into areas that if we have just a quarter of it channeled and made available towards specifically women, that would be one of them. So financial intervention or economic interventions. Yeah.
Some participants at the forum shared their thoughts.
This program, I would say it's timely because it has come at the point where women are always sitting aback, making sure that they leave everything for the men to decide. So having this program has taught me that no matter the situation, if you are human, it doesn't mean that you are limited. You can fight for what is rightfully yours, and you can also go a step ahead and contest in various positions that are not solely meant for men.
But I heading a girls model, this workshop will not only be beneficial to me, but of course whatever I'm going to take home from this place will be impacted on the girls, because our goal is that the girls should speak up. Once they have started, or once they are learning to speak up from the basic level, they will grow up to be responsible women who, whenever they are faced with any challenge, they will be in the position to speak up without any intimidation.
Reporting for Joy News, Rafik Salam. Wow.
Now, in our next story, the Member of Parliament for Asanwasi constituency has assured commercial tricycle operators in Kumasi of his preparedness to lead a peaceful demonstration against recent regulations to restrict their operations. Muntaka Mubarak says this will happen when ongoing deliberations with the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly to review the ban of pragya from the Central Business District fail to yield positive results. The MP's intervention halted long hours of a street blockade at Abuabo in protest of the decision. Nanaya Ojima has more in this report.
Some commercial tricycle riders on Thursday blocked the Abuabo High Street in Kumasi to protest operational restrictions by the Metropolitan Assembly. Motorists and commuters were left stranded in traffic as leaders of Zongo communities attempted to restore order. The riders have been facing off KMA since the decongestion exercise in the Central Business District of the city kicked in last week. It took the intervention of the Member of Parliament, Muntaka Mubarak, to clear the protesters from the streets. The MP, who agrees there is need for the city to be decongested, believes bylaws should be enacted to regulate activities of the riders. Muntaka Mubarak has since called on riders to exercise restraint as his office leads deliberations with the KMA. I am pleading with you to exercise restraint as we deliberate on the directive. I want you to stay away from the CDB as we continue to deliberate with them. On Monday, I'll come back to you and give you the resolutions from the meetings we'll be having with them. If there is need for us to proceed on a peaceful demonstration, I promise you, I will join you for that.
Peaceful demonstration.
The MP is pushing for legalization of commercial tricycles to enhance regulation and expand business opportunities for the youth.
We cannot continue to be like ostriches and pretend that they don't exist without proper regulation. So I think that if the government is dragging its feet in trying to amend the law, because it is when you legalize it that you take the opportunity to streamline how it is used. I mean, it is almost everywhere in West Africa. If you go to Asia, it's almost everywhere. Even those countries that seem to be so-called developed, like Malaysia and the Singapore and this, you still find these things there. Why is it that they've allowed it to be there? Because they legalize it and they take the opportunity to regulate it. Looking at the ages of those who are there. Look at the very, very young guys, very energetic guys. We don't have to drive them to a point where they feel hopeless. Because it is hopelessness that drills countries.
Meanwhile, the riders have resolved to halt the agitations and restrain themselves from plying the CBD. Public Relations Officer for the Praga Okada Drivers Association, Al Asbat Al Hassan Sidi, reveals preparedness to help city authorities enforce the regulations.
We will try to go back to try engaging the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly Authority on how they will carry their exercise. As they said, they will continue up to Friday. So since now we have advised our people not to go to those areas, so I think we have to go to them and assist them so that at least we won't hear any, we arrest this person, to extend it to amount to any chaos or any brutality anymore.
For Joy News, Nana Ojima reporting.
Now, a less expensive form of dialysis for people suffering from kidney failure involves filling the abdomen with fluid and draining the fluid to rid the body of waste. The method, known as peritoneal dialysis, is done manually or automatically using a machine called an automated cycler. Now, this automated cycler, which does the exchange of fluid for patients at night, is imported and can be financially stressful for the poor. Fortunately, biomedical engineering students of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology have been able to build a less expensive cycler. Love FM's Kwesi Debra speaks with the developers, Theodora Adefi Jambra, Benjamin Yeboah, and Martin Opoku-Kwarteng for Tech Thursday.
These two procedures that we do, that's hemodialysis, that we use the hemodialysis machine. Now, statistics shows that the number of hemodialysis machine in the country isn't much, and so mostly they are expensive. They are very expensive, and so this procedure is mostly being used, the manual continuous ambulatory peritoneal dialysis, which we have automated. The traditional procedure is being used in the hospital, mostly for the children, at the children's ward. And so we sitting back and looking at the challenge that we have as a country, that hemodialysis machine, they are not enough in the country, and most of them are being owned by government hospitals, and hence the price are very high for one procedure. And so we do this also to subsidize the cost, and also it can be used in the hospital, and then as well as being used in the house. Another part of it is that with the traditional continuous ambulatory peritoneal dialysis, it's a labor intensive. With the traditional continuous ambulatory peritoneal dialysis procedure, there is the inflow, the dwell time, and then the drain. Okay, so with the inflow, the mechanism that they employ is gravity, where they hang the dialysate bag on an IV pole, and then they open the channel for it to flow into the peritoneum cavity. And then when it's done, they close the valve. That's manually done. They switch the valve for a dwell time, which depends on the peritoneum cavity of the patient. So it can go from 30 minutes to an hour or more, 5 hours. Okay, so with this procedure, we didn't want to change the identity of it, so we kept some part of the traditional continuous ambulatory peritoneal dialysis, and we automated other parts. So the parts that we kept is the inflow part, where we use the gravity. So here you hang your dialysate bag, as my colleague is using. This is our dialysate bag for practical purposes. So you hang it, and then you allow for an inflow. So here we are performing the rinse. Okay, so as we pass through the dialysate from the dialysate bag, there is a motor in here. For the normal one, we use for the traditional one, we use gravity for the drain. But here we are employing a pump. So as you can see, as the water goes in here, it is being drained out here by the pump in the machine, which in turn speeds up the whole process. And it's safe because the normal pressure that's not going to affect the cavity of the human being is 10.3 kilopascal, and we calibrated our water pump in there with this value, so it's safe to use. So as and when the drain is done, you hear a buzzer indicating that it's done. Then the valve switches to a different procedure. This is the rinse, so then it goes to an inflow.
And it's on that scientific and innovative note that we cap off the news this morning. But stay with us, a lot more action coming your way via the news review. We'll be right back. Well, thank you very much for staying with us. We'll be getting interactive shortly as we dig into the newspapers. Maxwell Lukuto, an NDC parliamentary aspirant, is our guest. But before I get to him, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic always helping us bring you this specific segment on the AM show. And here's what they're offering you in case you've never heard. If you're a man, they're offering you free prostate screening. Gratis. Untiashe. If you're a woman, they're offering you fertility screening. Do you know your fertility status? That is why all of you, in fact, including me, and I do this every year, it's my ritual. We should all make tracks to the Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. And here's where you can locate them. They're in Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. They are also in Kumasi, Kronum Abuehia behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrade Anaje State, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanso and Siama Nzima. If you'd like to call them, and you should, pick up your phone. Around 8 o'clock, give them a buzz. 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But just the start, the commencement of the news review. Maxwell, a very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Akufo Addo.
You always like taking me down that stretch, though my OT people will bombard me with chi instead. But anyway, it's another day, right? As I always do, I would like to find out, I don't know when the last time was that you went to the constituency that you are gunning for and what's the situation is there, especially as the rains are back. And then if there's any topical matter, for example, your side in Parliament, though you are not in Parliament yet, but your side in Parliament has said that they will pitch camp at the central bank, giving a 21-day ultimatum on the back of some expenditure from the year 2022. If you have any quick thoughts, and tell me what's your constituency been like, then we can quickly get into the papers. You should be able to finish this in about 2 minutes, so we start.
Good morning, Ben. Good morning to my constituent, Southton, Sugar Govt, Pelpuo, Sokwe, and all the environs. I am actually speaking from my constituency. I've been here for some time. I'm currently under an NGO. I partner with an NGO which is doing eye screening, medication, giving lenses, and even going to do surgery for my constituents for free. We started on
what exactly for free?
And today we'll be in the Global Evangelical Church, where the program is scheduled to take place. And I'm also visiting the BEC candidates from center to center to encourage them and to motivate them.
I was asking what it was that was for free. I didn't quite hear it.
No, the screening is free.
What
medication
screening?
Is free. Screening, yes. The screening is free. The medication is free. The lenses have been so subsidized.
Okay, so it is eye screening. Okay.
Yes, eye screening. Eye, yes.
Okay.
15 cities for the lenses, and then what to do? Those that will have to operate on the surgeries. The surgeries will also be done for free, and so that is what I'm currently doing in the constituency, together with visiting my BC candidates and to motivate them to produce the best that they can out of the first external exam that they are undertaking, and so that is what I am engaging throughout this week, and so I speak from the constituency.
Okay.
All is quite well, but as usual, the issue about the finances, the economy is so dire. I just received an SOS message this morning. The person needs 100 Ghana cedis, and that if that 100 cedis doesn't come, he may end up ending his life today. That is the extent of the way things are harsh for people at the countryside. And so for me, it's really terrible. It's really terrible.
But I hope you spoke to this person. You gave some counseling to this person in terms of not ending their life. Why I would, focus a bit on that is recently we saw even a 7-year-old school pupil take his own life, and he knew exactly what to do. So I hope that whatever the situation may be, even if you gave the person what they needed, hopefully this doesn't arise again, or at least you gave the person some counseling or directed them where they can get some counseling, because when people get to that point, the point of desperation, then sometimes, life becomes meaningless and they want to do certain things that ordinarily they wouldn't want to do. So I hope at least you did something of the sort moving forward.
Yeah, sure. We hope that we'll continue to counsel people and give them some direction and some hope. People are gradually losing hope in themselves, in the whole country. And we may be seeing most of these things in recent times, but I hope and pray that with our interaction with them and the ability to give them some hope and some leverage, I'm sure they will come around, and we just hope and pray. Things are really bad, Ben. Things are really, really bad. It's not as it used to be. It's not like this person is not engaged in any meaningful venture to make life meaningful for himself, but things don't add up. You hit here, it doesn't hit. You hit the other side, like JDN will say, and nothing comes out. And so it's becoming crazy as the days go by. But I just hope that we'll begin to listen to each other, give direction, and give hope. Leadership at the top should be able to make us feel that the way we are feeling, they are feeling the same thing. But if it is so reversed, and then you think that they are in heaven and then you are in the hottest part of hell, then make you feel like just any day. But for me, I would say that the last resort is not ending life. Speak to somebody. For instance, this person that I'm talking about spoke through somebody and it's gotten to me. I saw the message about 2 or 3 minutes ago when I was getting ready to come on set. And so after this, I'll find a way of getting to him and making sure that I restore some hope to him and get him back to his feet. I pray and hope that God grants me grace and the ability to be able to provide what I have to provide to him too.
Right, let's get into the papers now, find out what they have to share. And of course, the banner headline there from the Daily Graphic newspaper, 60 billion Ghana cedi loss. We took half of debt haircut. That's according to the Bank of Ghana. And I can understand that, but my concern, I want to get microscopic with this. for us to delve into the bits about maintenance of vehicles, for example, and the sums that were spent, about travel, for example, and the sums that were spent, about the sums of money given to directors and staff and the sums that were spent, and the increments year on year, 2021 to 2022, of over 240%, over 100%, 87%. Those are the things I want to look at. I'm not even so concerned about the DDEP. Well, the central bank played along, and some would say their hands were tied, and that, for me, also boils down to the fact that we have political appointments to the leadership of the central bank. That is one of my problems. You know, here in our part of the world, all these things are very problematic. Very problematic. But beyond that, the microscopic details of the Bank of Ghana, its own internal workings, and these sums of money, like Maxwell was pointing out, if the rest of us are in a certain flux, a certain fix, and we're feeling the pinch, tightening our belts till our waists are this small, and yet it appears that some other people, are now living large and expanding their waist sizes, then that is where we begin to have problems. But no tax stamp, no textile sale, and Abugi's flats under lock and key. Teachers commute from Accra to Koforidua, that is to the school. There's also district level election, EC to announce new date and supplement on US Ghana Business Expo 2023. So let's hit the ground running with those stories. And the Bank of Ghana has explained that 53.1 billion Ghana cedis out of the 60 billion losses it posted in its 2022 financial results were a direct result of the government's domestic debt restructuring exercise, both the first and second phases. A statement from the Bank of Ghana made available to the Daily Graphic yesterday said domestic debt exchange, which was a major plank of the corrective action required for the International Monetary Fund program, did not achieve the required target. The target was for the stock of government debt to be halved from 105% of the gross domestic product to 55% of the GDP by 2028. Now, contextualizing the 60 billion Ghana cedi loss in its financial results for last year, the Bank of Ghana said the losses emanated from challenges the country had faced since 2019. The statement further said there was a clear mismatch between revenue inflows and expenditure financed in 2020 by exceptional support from the IMF and the World Bank resources. I can read through all of these and say, yes, you may have some reason to part of what you're saying, but this gargantuan loss obviously comes with consequences. And in 1 year, on the back of the DDEP and on the back of the less than 10 billion Ghana cedi loss that the bank would have incurred anyway without the DDEP, 60.8 billion Ghana cedis. That is twice as much as we've gone to the IMF for. So, how then do we make any headway as a country? It's like borrowing your way into the ground and living a life where you are borrowing ad infinitum without any pause. So you are always in debt, and that's where Ghana finds itself. And now with this add-on of about 20% to our debt stock, where does that leave us? Maxwell, quick thoughts. We've already started talk on this, so very quickly, and then we'll leave it.
Yeah, Ben, so eventually I may join the parliamentarians who are going to pitch camp at the Bank of Ghana to ensure that the...
But you're not a member of parliament yet.
I said I'm going to join them. Don't I have the right to join any group of my choice?
I was just saying, I was just wondering.
I'm only saying that I'm going to join them to pitch camp. I'm not sure the pitching has been limited to only the parliamentarians. I am a citizen of Ghana, and I feel strongly about the things that are happening. And I decide to join a group and to do whatever I think will inure to the benefit of the country. And so you're also welcome to join us if you so please. I see that you are peeved by the kind of explanation these people are giving to us, and they think that we should take it hook, line, and sinker. Who doesn't know what maintenance is? Who doesn't know the cost of fuel? Who doesn't know that if things increase beyond your budget, you have to cut down on your expenses? Who doesn't know that travel expenses may not necessarily be by force? If you have to send 5 delegations and you know that the budget you have is half of that, why don't you send 2 or 3? So what explanations are they giving to us? You said that you have decided to cap car maintenance, and you have added fuel, you have added lubricant, you have added repair, you have added world travel, you have added what? We are listening to all those, but the issue is that you have a budget, don't they? They have a budget and they have to run within the budget. If it is their personal money, is that the way they are going to spend it? No, they won't. Is it because it is a money for Bank of Ghana, so they decide to go on the spending spree And they are behaving as if NDC has concocted new stories that we are putting across. It is the same auditor report that is being put across and being analyzed. Like we are saying now, we are analyzing the line by line expenditure for them. And so if they are coming out with this kind of explanation and they think that we should just take it, this is what makes people more angry as the day go by. And so for me, I think that if they keep quiet, the better it will be for all of us. But the more they try to explain, the more they try to infuriate people, and the worse things become for us. And so, sure, after the 21, if he doesn't resign, the deputies don't resign, I will join them with pitch camp and make sure that we put so much pressure on them so that they can resign and we turn things around for this country. It's just becoming too bad. I don't know whether it's become an extension of the NPP. They are so inept. They are so.
Thank you, Maxwell.
They are so clueless, and they keep talking and they keep making noise in our ears as if we don't know what governance is all about. They behave as if they are the first government we have ever had in our fourth republic. But several people have gone, have passed.
But let's also face the facts that there have been other governors. I remember from all the days, way back from the days of Agama, when he was governor and all of that, and none of them has had it particularly rosy. Even before, when he was in governor, before he became Minister of Finance, he also had his own woes. It's just that this time there are, especially when you are, proposing a program for support from the IMF, and some of these matters rear their ugly heads, then it becomes problematic. But I think we should also give them some leeway. It's not as though they have been so abysmal. But last year, and on the back of some of what we've seen, it's horrendous, basically.
Is anybody putting a knife on their neck to build a new headquarters? Is anybody putting a knife on their neck?
That one is a big bone of contention. Building new headquarters at the cost of $250 million, the equivalent of about 2.8 billion Ghana cedis. That one, I mean, I have my very, very, very grave concerns about. But let's make tracks so that we don't end up spending all the time on just this. No tax stamp, no textile sale. That story on page 13 of the Daily Graphic newspaper. From October this year, no textiles can enter or be marketed in the country without a tax stamp. The Ghana Revenue Authority, which is implementing the tax measure, said affixing tax stamps to all textiles imported or locally manufactured would save the local textile industry from collapse and help it to build back to create jobs. This is one of the two initiatives being rolled out by the GRA following the amendments to some tax measures. The other measure is the imposition of tax on gaming operators and gaming wins. You do know that it was said recently that soon 10% of winnings will be taxed. Abugi's flats under lock and key and a fully completed residential building for teachers of Ebri Girls Senior High School has been abandoned for the past 4 years following the contractor's refusal to hand over the project. In this country, we are funny. While some staff of the school continue to bear the brunt of the closure, the contractor insists that he needs to be paid additional money to enable him to complete the work. In an interview with the Daily Graphic yesterday, the Ghana Education Trust Fund Secretariat, the financier of the project, stated categorically that it did not owe the contractor. Officials of the Secretariat showed the Daily Graphic a schedule confirming the full payment and explained that, consistent with every contract, the financier holds a retention against defects which would be paid to the contractor after the defect liability period had elapsed. Ghana for you. Ghana for you. At page 17, EC to announce new dates. The Electoral Commission will announce a new date for the district-level elections. Dr. Srebo Kweku, Director of Electoral Services, has said this has become necessary after the October 3, 2023 date initially set for the election was cancelled. Quick reflections, Abugi's, and of course, we also have the tax stamps on textiles to protect the local textile industry. Quick thoughts, quick ones, Maxwell.
Yeah, Ben, so the Abugi's case, I think that it should be some contractual arrangements there. And if all monies have been paid to the contract, I am part of them. We do contract and it's on. The retention will be kept after, I think, 6 months or so. Then it can be paid back to you. But for a contractor to be asking for more money to be able to finish the work might have meant something. I'm not sure out of the blue he would.
And there are defects. They are saying that there's also a retention procedure when there are defects that ought to be fixed. But for me, Maxwell, I'm wondering how this could have gone on. Now you have teachers commuting from Accra all the way to Ebri and other places, Koforidua and others, And for 4 years, this has been going on. What kind of country are we? 4 years.
Yeah, so, Ben, you see, so this government, you don't take them serious. Whatever they tell you, go to look at the other side of the story. Any of you can speak to the contractor and you hear the other side of the story. That's why I'm saying that if all things were well, the contractor would have been taken to court by now. No serious contractor who is waiting for his retention to be paid to him will lock up the facility because you have to hand over 6 months clear after that before the retention is paid to you. So if you know you have a retention to take, you would hand over quickly and get your money after 6 months. So it means there's an issue there. You see, during the course of contraction, variations come. There are times that the consultants will come and vary the amount of work that you have to do. We call it additional works. So if they give you instruction to do additional works, certificate has to be prepared on same. I don't know whether they are intending to add the additional works to maybe the retention to be paid to him. But maybe he's also asking for that. So if all things were well, government would have taken this contractor to court. And by now, I'm sure he would have handed over. So for them to be waiting for these 4 years means there's something more to it. I hope you get me. So it is time we go behind the scene and get this contractor and see what can be done about it. For him, whether teachers are commuting from Accra or from Koforidua or wherever, may not be too much of his issue. It's about business. It's about contract. And so government has to meet him wherever he has to be met and then sort out the issues and the bungalow handed over. If government is serious about this thing, they will sit down with him. But up to now, 4 years, like you said, are we in a serious country? How can this happen in a very civilized society? No, it won't. So for me, it is not the best. The tax stamp on the tester product, yes, we are all looking for ways to increase our taxes and our revenue. And so if that's a way we are going to get let's and also because I've dealt with the local tester industry, I know the challenges they go through. And so once you do that, you make them at par with the foreign cheap testers that come into the country because we need to patronize these local tester factories and make sure that their products are around us at a very cheaper cost that can leverage on those that come from outside.
All right.
The bet,
let's make tracks.
I don't do the bet. Say that again.
I was saying we should make tracks. Are you on the Electoral Commission now?
No, I'm on the tax. The tax on the bet.
Okay.
I don't do the bet, but yesterday I saw some of the young ones who mostly engage in this, and they were not happy about the policy decision to tax the little they get from it. They complain that they don't have much to do, that's the little they do, and they get their little income from that. They suffer to make it. But at the end of the day, as a country, it is necessary that in everything you do, some tax be taken. It is the amount that is going to be taken from them, which I think should be the issue. If it could be looked at reasonably, I'm sure they will be able to go through. I don't do the bet myself, so I don't do the details. I might not be able to speak too well about what is there.
All right. Let's quickly wrap with these stories.
Let's look at these things critically because things are really hard for us.
Right.
So
Maxwell, let's
think that is a safe haven for them, or that's where they can. Then we are also going to hit hard on them. I'm sure.
All right.
If we don't take
Max, we have to make tracks. Let's move on. Let's move on, Max. Daily Guide newspaper, CDS not sacked. That's according to the Army chief. Pictured there, Vice Admiral Seth Amwama. Blay, I'm talking about Freddie Blay. Freddie Wasimeu Blay leads GNPC to Guyana confab. And there's also OSP freezes Cecilia Dapa accounts and man sentenced to death for sacrificing son. Ignore NDC Bank of Ghana propaganda, John Kuma says so. He is Deputy Minister of Finance. Propaganda, huh? Anyway, let's get into those two stories. Well, the story on Cecilia Dapa, I mean, nothing much in there. OSP freezes Cecilia Dapa's accounts. That basically summarizes it. The accounts are said to hold significant quantities of CD and dollar currency, and they were administratively frozen by the special prosecutor, who has already filed documents in court asking permission to continue the action. Following the news that she was keeping more than $1 million in her home, the former minister is still being investigated. There have been the court proceedings and all of that. But I asked myself, like happened with the PPA, former boss, Ejenim Boateng Ejay, and how he got his sums of money back. This one too. Anyway, the focus is going to be on page 6. Page 6. Now, man sentenced to death for sacrificing son. A 33-year-old food vendor has been sentenced to death by an Accra High Court after he was found guilty by a jury for throwing his 2-year-old son into the sea near Akuma village, Accra, as a sacrifice to become rich. The convict, Prince Akwe, aka Jew, according to court documents, had engaged in occultism and killed his son for sacrifice in April 2021. Sad development. Very, very sad development. There's also the business finder. NLA exempted from 10% tax. Other licensed private lotto operators cry foul. So how is that? And there's also inflation inches up to 43.1%. Charlie? Let me just do those and then we shall call it a conversation. So page 4. The year-on-year inflation for July 2023 has increased to 43.1% compared to 42.5% recorded in June 2023, the Ghana Statistical Service has said. The GSS noted that the Consumer Price Index for July 2023 was 191.0 as against 133.5 for July 2022. And this also tells you, month on month, now for about 3 months running, we've seen increments. Again, what is going on? Then the final bit I'm looking at, is that story meant to be on page 9? There was that story. Page 6, rather. On page 9, there is corruption, nepotism, injustice erodes state institutions. But page 6, the National Lottery Authority's 590 game has been exempted from the 10% withholding tax imposed on the gross winnings from all betting, gaming, lotto, and other games of chance. And private lotto operators and third-party collaborators operating NLA's 590 game will also not pay the 10% tax on wins. But licensed private lotto operators are crying foul. They are saying, why should we be picking and choosing as far as this tax is concerned? Final thoughts, Maxwell. Our time is up, so I'm giving you 30 seconds. Let's go.
Yeah, so Cecilia Adapa, these are the fallout we are getting. But as the days go by, we hear about new things, and it only tells us that all is not well. I just hope and pray that the OSP will stand on his feet and not be swayed, as usually that the president does, what he did to the former OSP boss. And then I hope and pray that same thing doesn't befall him. And then we'll get some positive results coming out of whatever he's doing. As for John Kuma talking about NDC doing propaganda, it's laughable. I don't take him serious again. Himself and his boss, Ken Oforiatta, especially about the IMF thing, were never going to go, and before a day or two, we were there. And so I don't take him serious again. What is the propaganda and whatever the NDC is talking about? Have they manifested any new stories or any new headline? Okay. It is what has come out from the Bank of Ghana that we are analyzing. And so for me, we don't want to take them serious.
Right.
For the woman who has thrown the also into the sea as a sacrifice to make money, it only goes to tell us how desperate we have become as Ghanaians and the way things are not going too well for us. And
that story, actually, that incident happened in 2021. But thank you, Maxwell, for joining the conversation. We're so grateful, always glad to have you. Maxwell Lukuto is an NDC parliamentary candidate for South Tone. He joined the conversation. Have a good day, sir. And now, as we wrap and segue into sports, the segment brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They're offering free prostate screening if you're a man, free fertility screening if you're a woman. Here's where you can locate them. Here in Accra at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Kronimabwe here, behind the Angel Educational Complex. The Stakwade Anaji Estate, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and the Siamanzima. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Bringing us to the end of the news review, but just the start of all the sporting action coming your way up next, Tuesday. Welcome back on the AM show, and it is time for us to dig into myriad issues from the Wa Central constituency and the major issues they face there in terms of flooding and their roads to other matters of national scope. Joining me on the show this morning, he's a long-standing member of parliament and he is a member of the 8th Parliament as well of the Republic. I'm talking about none other than the Member of Parliament for Wa Central himself, Rashid Pelpuo. A very good morning to you.
Hi, good morning.
Thanks for making it on the AM show.
And good to see you.
Thank you, sir.
Right.
Thank you. So let's get into the major issues. I usually like to start off conversations with members of Parliament from their own constituencies. Okay. So I'd like to find out, how is Wa Central faring? What are some of the positives and what are some of the things that are affecting the members of your constituency?
Well, Wa Central is okay. We are faring well, except for the general pain we are all suffering because of the challenges we are facing with the economy. And so business is slowing down because money has become very difficult to acquire, and the people are normally in business. Farmers are having challenges because of the difficulty in getting fertilizer to farm, and it's been tough with them. And sometimes you watch it, you don't know what to do to help them because the expenditure required for them to get on their feet to work is so high, and it does appear government has gotten to a point when they can't do much. Yeah, and the pain is reaching out to everybody. So, but generally, Wa Central is settled well. Peace is fine. The authorities responsible for peace are doing well so far, and we are looking forward to achieving greater highs with time, especially when we are able to resolve the question of a government in power not doing much to support the people.
Let's talk about flooding. The rains are back, so to speak. We've had the first rainy season, and the second one, we're on the cusp of the second one, though the seasons seem to have changed a bit on the back of climate change, global warming, and all of that. But the next season is going to be the heavier season. I hear in some parts of the Northern Belt, you have only one rainy season.
One rainy season.
While in other parts, you may have the two seasons like we have here down south. What is the situation in your constituency, and what is the flooding situation there like?
Well, we are not suffering as much as the Upper East and parts of Northern region, but in the Wa Central, Wa municipality, or in my constituency, I think that the rains are quite okay. The intensity hasn't gotten to the fact that, to the point when the people will be suffering as much as we are seeing on television with others. So we are a little bit luckier than the rest of them.
So flooding is better.
It's better.
In your constituency. How about your roads? What are they like?
The roads are bad.
And maybe general infrastructure, health infrastructure, among others.
Thankfully, the last regime had invested so much in health. So we have a lot of cheap compounds all over. We have a number of clinics, and we have our regional hospital constructed. So that is
under the erstwhile administration.
Under the erstwhile, no.
Because
this administration
has Agenda 111 and a number of other projects that it is hoping to bring to bear. Agenda 111, is there any of the targets, districts or otherwise, in your area?
No, not one I know about. Yeah, we have a big we have a big support in terms of health infrastructure coming from the NDC administration. So, but it's supposed to be a continuum, because we need to renovate the Wa Central, Wa Municipal Hospital, which used to be the regional hospital, is in bad shape. We've been asking for such an intervention. It's not coming forth. And so that is the big challenge. And the needed infrastructure for the regional hospital to pick off and to have the investment fund for it to be able to operate fully is not also available. Government is always promising to do it. When the president went there, he was confronted with the issue and he made a promise, and the promise hasn't been fulfilled yet. So those are the key challenges we have. And hopefully with time, they will be fully addressed, but not now. In the present situation, we are just making do with what we had in the previous regime. And in other areas, I think that the major challenge we have is job creation for our people. And we have a lot of young people who have finished the university and senior high, secondary school, and are still, looking around for jobs. We hear about jobs created for, in the military, in the police, in the forces. Lots of our people apply, and normally they are disappointed. And those are the big challenges we are having, because in the end, it is how to keep the families going, how to get jobs for the many people who are finished school and are looking for opportunities. If West Central is not particularly taken care of, it will be a worry to us. It is often a worry to us.
I see. Well, at least some developments going on. When was the last time you were in your constituency?
I returned from my constituency at the time Honorable Bagbin was, that's about a month or so ago.
A month or so ago.
Yeah.
And there are a number of matters I'll be taking you to Parliament on. There's been talk about Niger, for example. I wanted us to start from the point of the economy.
Yeah.
But even the speaker has been talking about developments in Niger and other things happening. But how do you reflect on that? We have the latest victim of a coup d'etat or a military putsch being Niger. We've had Mali go. We've had Burkina Faso go. We've had Guinea go. In the sub-region since 2020, 7 countries have fallen by the hands of coup d'etats from West to Central Africa.
Yeah.
9 attempts, because some of the attempts were foiled, like the one in Guinea-Bissau. But 7. I don't remember the last era where we had so many coup d'etats in that region. It started right after the one against Nkrumah, and then there was a phase all the way to the 80s.
Yeah.
And then that phase sort of truncated democratic rule. But why do you think this is happening again?
Well, it is a worry to many of us observing the situation, the international political transformation going on. Coup d'etats occur in countries where the people feel dissatisfied with the ruling class, and the military decide to take over power because they think they are the last stop. But in recent times, it does show that the democratic transition we have gone into is beginning to slacken. It's beginning to show that it might not be the one acceptable to Africa, and that the constitutions we have drawn, which lead us into the present dispensation, must be re-examined to see whether that is what we want. I can also say that the possibility that leadership is becoming too complacent about being in power, and so begin to sidestep the will of the people in the social contract between us, is beginning to take shape. Leaders may have forgotten that when they are empowered for the people, not for themselves.
Right.
And so whenever you slack from being a committed person on behalf of the people, serving the people, and rather than, serving yourself, then the dissatisfaction begins to grow. It might not be realized immediately. It is when the external military strikes that you begin to examine that you were not doing what you were supposed to be doing. There are often some red lines leaders must not cross. Yeah, but
do you feel leaders in the sub-region are actively crossing those red lines?
They are actively crossing the red lines.
I mean, look at some of the things that are pointed to. Alassane Ouattara.
Yes.
On the back of what happened with Laurent Gbagbo in 2010 and everything since then. You go for 2 terms, and then all of a sudden, you tweak the constitution, go for a third term.
They want to live beyond their historical provision for a term of office allocated to them. They transgress the constitution, and that's often the problem. So essentially, it is about the economy. Most of the time, they violate the fundamentals of the rules that govern the governance of an economy. And when they do so, they tend to benefit themselves rather than benefit the people. And so it becomes a key factor. Then the second one is the political transgression of the rules, of the laws, existing rules that should keep you in office. Being autocratic, tending to be autocratic, tending to be to keep the people, lead them into fear and panic by imprisoning them, by bringing situations that people might die without explanations of because they oppose you and all that. Those are political reasons, transgressing their human rights. And so when you violate their economic rights and it is in pain, and you violate their political rights, and it also becomes a problem. So the leaders must begin to rethink about what they do when the will of the people is entrusted into their hands.
Right.
And for me, in West Africa, we need to do much more than we are doing now. There is a consistent, what do you call that? Consistently, we are not developing beyond where we meet the economy. You come to an economy, you do the bad things that you shouldn't do. When people complain, rather than addressing the problem, you say, oh, this government has also done that. Yeah. This fellow has also done that, as if to suggest that you are brought to continue the bad things other people have been doing. So more and more, So
there tends to be a continuum in bad governance rather than good governance, rather than improving, the lot of the people.
Yes.
We like to play the game of passing the buck. So if things don't go well, but they also didn't do it well, or they failed at this. So if I fail, while in essence, we bring political parties into power, they will teach you in political science, there's something called delivering the bacon. You must deliver the goods to the people. Once you make the promises, you have to be seen to be trying to deliver that. I remember in the United States when former President Obama was president, there was something called the Obameter. A meter measuring Obama's tenure. Even there, I think he scored 50-something% or slightly less than 50. But you can see how rigid they were with measuring rhetoric versus outcomes, deliverables. But here, it appears there's such a yawning gap between what we are told and reality from both ends. And I will say, your party as well. I mean, the NDC and the MPP.
We had.
I don't know how that works.
You are right. We have our challenges. We had our challenges as NDC when we were in power. It is normal with a government that you should not perform the role of an angel. There are situations where you slip, and when you slip, you have to admit to that. And I do admit to the fact that some of the challenges we face were noticeable and were the reasons why we were kicked out of office. But for the MPP to come, did worse than we did, and still point at the small mistakes we have committed, is to refuse to accept responsibility. They pass on the worst, and then they try to take comfort in the bad things they do. And so corruption is the definition of dissatisfaction with the people. When the people are dissatisfied, they can point at somebody who has who shouldn't have what he has, or a government agent who should not be where he is, and who is there because he has taken much more than the people have allowed him to take. And so it becomes a problem. And it is the character of the Ghanaian, and we need to address it, that we have to make sure we can criticize the government and make sure we get the right thing done, whether you are supporting the government or not, rather than to say that, oh, you NDC, you are not the person to say that. You also did that. You also did that. And you see the young people in our country doing the same. Put something on air, and then you go to especially social media, go to see the comments on social media. Oh, NDC did worse. Oh, NDC did, so we should continue doing the worst. So the West should compare with each other, not the good. So I think that, so West African countries seem not to be seeing in focus the challenges ahead of us, the need for us to transform our economies, and the need for us to address the concerns of our young people. And so we all the while relapse in what we do and creating vacuum and creating a situation where the military can come in. We are against military takeover. We don't want it to happen in Ghana. We don't want it to happen anywhere else in Africa. But it is important that the peer review mechanism that allow states to review what each other does must take a new life, so we can caution each other. Because you cannot caution, I can caution Nana Addo from doing what he's doing now, because he has a response to give me. But when another president sees the bad things they are doing today and they are able to bring it out to him, there's a very likelihood that he might listen, But people they find sweetness in being in power and exploiting the people.
Are you suggesting then that, and this may be the case, that most of our leaders, if not all of them, I always single out Paul Kagame in Rwanda, and I always say that we can all have our problems with Paul Kagame. I have some problems with Paul Kagame. He's not perfect, but look at what he's done for his country since the genocide in 1994 and where they are now. Let's not kid ourselves. Ghana is behind Rwanda. Let's not kid ourselves. We are behind them in most things. In terms of strong institutions, the very strong institutions Obama spoke of and other things, we are way behind them. Let's not even pretend. Have you been to Rwanda? But the point also is that if our leaders, and most of them are friends, are doing certain wrong things. Our president is friends with Alassane Ouattara. I don't know whether he spoke to his friend, Alassane Ouattara in Cote d'Ivoire, when he was trying to go for a third term unconstitutionally, finding some way of tweaking the constitution. I don't know. But if they are all, in this together, who then watches the watchman? Who then counsels? do you get it? They all seem to be following that trend. Maybe in our instance, not wanting a third term, but in some of the things they do. So then, what moral right will any of these leaders have to go and caution someone like that? And on the other hand, sometimes they even end up congratulating leaders where, in fact, those in that country see something very different. I'll cite something for you. Not necessarily political leadership, but the Africa Bar Association recently conferred some honors on our president on the back of good governance, excellent governance that other leaders should emulate, and an anti-corruption stance, and a few things. And I asked myself, anti-corruption? Good governance? That is me as a media person, as a citizen. I don't know what you see, but I think we've got to the point of hypocrisy, and a lot of our African leaders aren't able to touch other leaders because they know they themselves are doing the same thing. Am I wrong?
You are not wrong. You see, we are getting to get used to bad governance and poverty and backwardness to the extent that when we are involved in it, we rather tend to praise it than revolve it. I mean, than abhor it. So it becomes a problem. If we are kept in a situation of bad governance consistently for a while, and for this government, for example, I don't think that the Bar Association...
And this was the Africa Bar Association, not the Ghana.
Yes, the African Bar Association, they could have done a bit more than they have done by coming to terms with the reality of the situation and eventually coming to see whether that is one of the points to praise our president for. Because more and more we see that the challenge is because of bad governance. We have a huge loan investment, taken for these people by the government. We don't know what they have done with it. So much is being taken, so much is lost. And the feeling is that it's lost in private investments, in private pockets. For example, when you take public money and you personalize it, it can't go back to the public. normally you keep it.
Right.
And that may have been the reason why you see some of the monies in the houses of people.
And we'll get to Cecilia now.
Yeah.
We'll
So that's the problem. So when you have so much money taken as loan, meant to boost the economy, and in a few years the economy is the most backward in Africa, then you begin to ask yourselves, where is the 600 billion that we have taken? Where has it gone to? Investments in monies like that presupposes that there are returns. If the returns are not coming forth, where have you taken it? And so the problem, must be observed more thoroughly before you come on to praise, presidents for what they do and all that. So I think that we must begin to be cautious about praising our presidents and our leaders. We must begin to examine the small things that will enable us go into the bigger issues. The devil is always in the details.
The minute issues.
Yes.
And it's always about the basics because like I've said here on this show, time without number, you can think of regime security or military security. But that could even work for you externally. But how about internally? What will make your country, and we keep talking, you hear some government officials sometimes talk about even the US and all of that. Have you paid attention in recent times to what the dynamics are in the United States, their economy, and how things are turning around even when it comes to unemployment? What is our unemployment rate, even among the youth? How about those who are not in any gainful employment? They are not in school, they are not under training, they are not getting any education, and they don't have work. It's a recipe for disaster. So when you look at what happened in Niger, I only bring that up because, and we'll, right after that, we'll get into the economy and related details. My concern, the countries around us are all going, apart from maybe Togo.
Yeah.
That, look at, and Niger is not too far up, is it northwest?
Yeah.
Or northeast, I should say. You have Mali gone. Guinea, Burkina Faso. How worrying is it for you? I mean, with what is happening all around us?
It's a terrible thing. It's a worrying situation. It presupposes that Ghana has to be very careful in what we are doing. It also presupposes that we should begin to examine the central reason why these countries are going. But, and ECOWAS is not showing enough commitment to seeking peace. The pronouncement about Niger, for example, to giving them 1 week to hand over power.
Well, that has elapsed, and Buhari was denied by his own Senate in terms of the military option.
Those are not, they are not intelligent enough for us to have trust in ECOWAS as an overpowering military organization that can serve the people. But the problem also is that
so I meant Tinubu, Bola Tinubu. I think Tinubu. I may have said something else. Right.
Tinubu. Yeah. So the problem also is that we are beginning to see a transformation, an international transformation within West Africa that should question the real leadership style going on. Because if the military are more interested, are more interested in taking power, then just don't label the reason to be wanton. There must be some reasons, and we need to do some study about it. And I think that Ghana should take it up, study about it very quickly, and see how we can resolve our own issues. Or else, all the red lines that could happen, that could bring about a coup d'etat in a country, Ghana has passed them all. But thankfully, we have come to a point when we are committed to peace, and then a political transformation or changing government as a result of democracy, democratic practices. So we need to study them all. We need to study what is happening, and we need to make sure we approach this issue in manners that can serve our national interests. At the moment, I think that Ghana is at the edge.
Let's come to our economy, because that is one of the most topical matters right now, and it's one of the main bases on which this administration came to power, the economy and the purported mismanagement under your administration's tenure. And I do admit that there were some concerns at the time from doomsaw and all of that, and the crippling effect it had on the economy. But like you said at the start, governance is supposed to get better over time.
Yes.
And so if you make certain promises to me and I vote for you and oust another administration and you come and give me worse, then it becomes really problematic. Currently, we find ourselves with an economy that has a debt hitting around 600 billion Ghana cedis. Almost.
Yeah.
600 billion.
From 120 billion.
We're also looking at an economy that has a lot of wastage, loopholes, Auditor General report in and out, we see them. The year before, over 17 billion. Last year, over 15 billion. Thankfully, a lot of that can be recovered. The question is whether it will be recovered. Then we look at the taxes that have been heaped. Yesterday, I was going over a phone costing about 1,390 cedis. If you add the COVID-19 levy, NHIA, all those others that come in, you are looking at almost 1,700 cedis, almost 400 cedis added on. Look at the item. Look at the bill. We have the COVID-19 levy, and some people keep asking, why do we still have that levy when you go and get certain services? There's the Bank of Ghana, and maybe I should leave the Bank of Ghana out. Inflation is going up again. For 3 months now, inflation has been shooting up. In fact, Ghana now ranks first with the highest food prices for sub-Saharan Africa. Highest prices of food in sub-Saharan Africa on the back of our inflation. How do you react to that?
Let me start from I'll take you back a little about our administration and the accusation of us as unable to perform and for which reason we have been changed. And the question of doomsaw, which was key in the campaign against us. Doomsaw was not our problem. I mean, it was not caused by the NDC. Doomsaw came about because of our failure to keep investing in energy. And for the 8 years of President Akufo, a man I admire, I don't want to give an impression that he didn't do well. The 8 years of President Akufo, he made attempts to add value to our power. That's why Bui came about. But there was no single megawatts of power added to our energy supply. And for all the 8 years, imagine John Mahama and President Mills coming in, the accumulation of investment that took place, foreign direct investment that came about, and then the increase in domestic investment and the need for power at the point about 100 or so, I can't remember the amount of power needed. Megawatts a month required. And so we couldn't immediately get the power as we required. And so there was a need for us to double up. And that's brought about the IPPs, multiple IPPs signed to close the gap. Also remember that at the time, Akosombo was suffering, our hydropower was suffering because the rains had not been good in the previous year. So immediately we ran into a doomsaw situation, a situation where we had to manage power. So it wasn't like doomsaw caused by NDC. It was doomsaw addressed by NDC. And by 2016, we had finished addressing the problem when these people came in. So Ghanaians didn't want to listen to this. And they kept saying, oh, you are the cause. There was doomsaw in your time. But they didn't know where it was coming from. It was coming from MPP. Anyway, so today we are seeing the same people who accuse us of incompetence demonstrating highest level of incompetence Ghanaians have ever seen. Borrowing 600 billion, like you have observed, and not making it reflect the thinking and the policies that they themselves define.
So the 600 billion is not all of, you mentioned around 120 billion at the time they took up. So it would mean that they have added on over, let's say, just around 480 billion.
And
or slightly less.
Without demonstrating enough results that we have borrowed this money, we want to do this. And look at the fundamentals as we are talking about. Those were the same fundamentals the so-called exceptional economist talked about, the vice president, when he talked about the fact that if you want to dodge or if you want to give the impression you are doing well, the fundamentals will expose you. The same fundamentals are exposing them. They can't control the spiraling, rise in
fact, going back to
inflation.
2016, there's something we've put on Joy News. You can check it out on Facebook. The current vice president, as a throwback, he is quoted to have said, anything taxable that can be feasibly taxed, they are trying to impose taxes on it. That is the NDC back then. And now, even COVID is gone, yet we're, well, not gone technically in the sense of you cannot contract it. It's still in there, but it's no longer a pandemic. It's not a WHO red line issue, yet we're being taxed for it. Sanitary pads are considered luxuries. They are being taxed.
The accusation of COVID being the reason for their backward development, but their failure in economic governance, is the worst reason they can ever give. COVID has brought them much more money than they could ever imagine. Look at the World Bank, the IMF. IMF alone got us $1.5 billion because of COVID. World Bank donated a number of, we approved a number of monies for agriculture, for youth development and all that. Several of them, millions of dollars because of COVID. They themselves have placed tax on COVID consistently for all these years, and they are still taxing us. And you keep saying because of COVID. They have gotten, it's just mismanagement. And when the monies came around, rather than using it to invest, to get Ghanaians get going, they shared it amongst themselves. And it was...
But I mean, how can you say that? Do you have proof of that?
Oh, the proof of it was the DCE, who was trying to explain how COVID money was shared, and he said he shared everything. She didn't even get any. And it's happened in every constituency, every district, that they gave to their constituency executives, and they gave to their supporters, and they gave to each of them allocated a certain amount of money. They shared it, literally shared the money. She was caught on tape explaining how they shared the money, and that's not how to run an economy. So they have failed in every aspect of running this economy and creating opportunities for the people of Ghana. They have the one district, one factory, they have listed, one village, one dam, they have listed 1 million for each constituency, and all those kinds of things are all not seen happening or creating value in the development of our people. So essentially, this is a complete failed administration. And I haven't seen such an administration in Ghana before, that you have made promises to do ABCD, you have the resources to do ABCD. They have earned much more than any country, any government had earned in oil revenue, in loans granted them, in tax mobilization, in everything that will make a government comfortable and develop. They have it. And yet, why has it not happened?
And that then begs the question, of course, with what we've been talking about, when you look at the consumer price index and everything in between, the figures I've been mentioning and the fact that food inflation is now the highest, the food inflation in Ghana is now the highest in sub-Saharan Africa. That is going to be felt the most. The grinding poverty is going to be felt the most by the poor. The very people on the fringes of our economic system. They are going to feel it the most because the earnings are so little, and the least shocks to that could be a life or death situation. And that's really where we find ourselves. But when you contemplate that, how do you find it then? I mean, her issue is still being investigated. Now I hear her funds have been frozen by the special prosecutor. I'm talking about Cecilia Abnadapa and the matter in court and all of that. But when you have us all, we were talking about hoarding and how it was affecting the CD's stability. And now you find more than $1 million, because it was 1 million they took, but there was more. Yeah. And then foreign currency, 300,000 euros, among others, in one person's, home, not even in a bank. Quick reflections on that as well.
Well, I have the impression that more monies are hidden in many more houses than we imagine. But Cecilia, the past issue is a very terrible situation of a government official keeping away wealth that shouldn't have been kept by one person. Well, we cannot completely now say he's guilty for anything, but we can say that there is a problem with government officials not being able to manage resources that belong to the people. And sometimes you find such resources in the houses of people. And her particular case shows that the complaints about corruption is real. You know, I cannot see any business person doing business and earning this much and decide to keep the money in your house. You should be grateful, you should be happy to put it in the bank account and demonstrate how wealthy you are if you are doing genuine business. So those of them who are talking about maybe her husband is rich, her brother was a rich person and gave her the money, it's very banal, it's very...
Are you suggesting, I'll let you go on, but
yeah,
on the other side, members of the NDC, ministers, former ministers, members of parliament and all of that, are you suggesting that if we also did that, if we could, and we went into the houses of some of you, we wouldn't find similar sums of money?
I want a situation where there will be a certain law, a rule now. Let's enter everybody's...
No, before we get into the law, I want you to address that issue. Are you suggesting if we went into the homes of former ministers under the NDC and even members of parliament now and from the NDC, we wouldn't find similar...
That's what I'm saying. I want a rule, something that will immediately say, look, wherever you are, stay there. Let's take all of you, former ministers and present ministers, to your houses. We want to check to see what you have kept there right now so that they can go and check for us to see whether there will be a person, what you can find in NDC ministers' houses and what you can find in present administration, their houses. I think that in the NDC, there was fear that if you take government money, something will happen to you. The rawest factor is the ruling thing that, you know...
Probity, accountability.
It's the thing that defines the NDC right now. And it pains me for people to now call us, the NDC people and other, sometimes they'll be pushed by MPP to say that, look, you are in government, what have you got? And then they will also be responding and say, our people are there, they just allow government power to go away, they don't have anything, they are poor. And then people start praising them for being bad. Oh, they are there, look at how much money they have been able to accumulate. That's the childish and illiterate way of looking at how political people operate. Don't praise people for stealing. Don't say that the NDC hasn't done well because it hasn't stolen. In our time, the fear of being caught stealing was still very paramount in the minds of the leadership and the ministers. Just imagine what happened to Abuga Pele. You know, just something that very, very...
Vicky Hammer.
And Hammer, by just pronouncement, something happened. And somebody bought a house, and it was mentioned, Rollis heard it and was talking about it, that he spent money, up to 500,000, buying a house. You know, the fear was there, and that people could not be seen to be blatantly doing the things that we see happening today. So NDC may have been some people who did things, but not as hundreds of what we are seeing now. This time it looks like, well, there's nobody to check us, we are in charge, the government is like a business and we reap out of it. Everybody's going for loan from their ministry and they are getting money out of it. There's a company that belongs to them that takes, you know, the benefits if you go for a loan and all that. And so it's like it's a business for them. It's become a big problem for how we want to see ourselves into the future, how we want to see development happening, led by people we trust. And for us now, I think that Cecilia Dapa has given us a big concern that monies are in the hands of individuals and not not meant for development, but meant for themselves.
Okay.
The monies may even be sent out of the country, which is the worst thing I can say of any country or any African person. That in situations where you have people who are suffering, who need food to eat, food prices are rising, farms are destroyed by floods, and you are taking money into your bedrooms or sending it outside the country, to be saved. Buying houses there. I went to the UK for a program, a parliamentary program, and then I passed by a certain house, saw a lot of Ghanaians there, and then the person driving me said, "Do you know this house is bought by one of our politicians? I don't want to mention his name because I'm not so sure." And I said, "Well, I'm not sure. I don't know." He said, "Well, this flat of houses, they are bought by him." And I felt bad, not because he bought it, but because he may have used government money to go and buy it. If you invest the money in Ghana, if you even steal it and invest it in Ghana, it is of much use than going to invest it in a place who don't need it. So
Well, he's gone to whoever that person is, he or she, has made the purchase, and they are obviously reaping the benefits. But the point is not creating those loopholes so that people can do that. But there are a few comments coming through. Some of them I may have to correct a few things on. But Musa Abatua says, the OSP has made a good step in freezing the account of Cecilia Dapa, but we encourage him to go further and initiate prosecution because the source of money cannot be explained. This is the reason we are seeing unprecedented coup d'etats in Africa. Corruption, mismanagement, cronyism, and nepotism is the order of the day. There are some interesting comments also coming through from Don Lewis, who says, Rashid keeps contradicting himself. The question is, was there Dumso under Kufuor's regime? Why then all of a sudden Dumso hit the country under John Mahama? Not all of us are, okay, I will not read the rest of it. But Don Lewis, you may have been living in a different dispensation if you are not aware that there was some Dumso under the Kufuor administration. You may, I don't know how old you are, but the suggestion, in fact, it's a problem that it didn't even start under Kufuor. We had issues even under the Rawlings administration, at the dawn of the Fourth Republic. All through to Kufuor, there were issues, and then inherited by Atta Mills, and then John Mahama. So let's be factual. Let's not just try to...
And then solved by John Mahama.
Throw dust into the eyes of people. I intentionally read your comment to also correct you, in case you actually don't know the right thing. And then there is Don Lewis coming back. This one I will also read as well. It says, Cecilia Dapa's case is no different from John Mahama, single-handedly sharing 40 cedis to all delegates across the country. If John Mahama was able to blow this quantum of millions of cedis without being questioned, and now Cecilia Dapa, the citizens must be worried. This one, I will agree with you on to a certain extent, Don Lewis. But the first one, you were not exactly spot on. But that question, if we are going to tackle the Cecilia Dapas of this country, then we must also ask when the likes of John Mahama, for example, we say TNT, and we question the MPP when they do that. I saw the last time Chairman Wuntumi dipping his hand into his pocket, giving out certain money and saying, oh, all these are TNT. The TNT, where will it stop? And how can you get such huge sums of money for delegates and all of that? I mean, look at the numbers.
Well, when people want to contest elections, they solicit funding and are able to get support from friends and from supporters in order to do what they are doing. I got an experience. I came to my constituency to contest my primaries. I had no money at all. In fact, I had only what I had in my bank account, which was very, very minimal. And then I started calling friends. And by the time I realized I had all the money I needed, and I asked myself, so I could do this.
Friends from where?
Friends who are in work, who are working. I just called somebody and said, look, can you help me? I'm going to do this, that. And then people invested, put money in my account for me. Even including friends who are MPP. I called them to ask, and...
You're telling me some members of the MPP were willing to support you?
Yes, a member of the MPP who is a friend, who had been a friend in school days. I called him and said, I'm running my primaries. He was kind enough to send something small to me, and I'm grateful for what he did. So
Member of Parliament?
No, not a member of Parliament at all. He's not a member of Parliament. In fact, he's a businessman.
Okay.
He's still insistently MPP, even though he got much of his business in NDC. And then he came to work with MPP. He's complaining he's not gotten jobs, but he got his money when NDC was in power. So, not significant money, just something small, but I'm happy small monies came together. So it is possible that people can raise money and invest. What your mama did, MPP did better than him when they were doing their own primaries.
You mean worse?
You mean worse than? No, given the 40 CDs, they did more. They gave more than what John Mahama did.
But the question is, does it justify, these sums of money? Because you see, my problem is, if you do the basic math, whether someone is giving 40 CDs, or 50 CDs, or 60 CDs, or 100 CDs, multiply that by the thousands of people who come and vote. Okay, that paints a certain picture. You know what? Let's do the math. I like doing so. Let's say even bottom line 40 by, let's assume 2,000. You're getting 80,000, and usually the numbers are much more than these. You are talking about tens of thousands, beyond those numbers. If you do the math, you're running into millions. How are we able to raise these kinds of money?
Yeah, I'm addressing the issue to mean that when people are during elections, people raise money to contest the elections. In the case of John Mahama, there was nothing established to find that he was holding money that didn't belong to him, that he couldn't explain. Okay. I don't know why, if he felt so bad about it, why they didn't ask him where he got his money to enable him to explain where he got it, or why they didn't even go to search his house in the same way as Cecilia Dapa's case happened. At the moment, the monies that are going round in the name of primaries, you can't imagine how much money is sent out. So much, even when they go to greet the delegates, how much money they give them is another thing. In fact, it is a concern we have to put across for Ghanaian politicians and the demands by delegates. I was here a few months ago to discuss the challenge we are having with delegates having problems, candidates having problems with delegates, having to give them money. Somebody called from Koforidua, from Takoradi, and he was saying that from their constituency, they are expecting that when the MPs come, when the aspirants come to contest, they expect nothing less than 5,000 from each aspirant for all the delegates before they will vote for them. I was shocked.
Wow.
Because you can't ever imagine that happening. Well, maybe now it is possible it can happen in NDC, but you can't imagine that ever happening in our situation. Even 40 cities, people are worried. 5,000 Ghana cities.
Did you mean, when you said maybe now it is possible to happen under did you mean NPP or NDC?
I'm saying maybe it is possible now.
Because I just want to get it clear so that moving forward, we know. But do you think that is something that we ought to do away with?
That's the point I'm making. I'm saying maybe because I don't know what is happening in the future. But in NTC, you can't imagine somebody getting 5,000 and giving to delegates. They can't find it. They don't have it. And it's happening right away. Last year it happened.
But maybe the change, maybe that only happens when you're in power and you have control of the largesse.
Oh, well, we were in power.
Of the state.
We were in power.
You have state power. Then the dynamics change. I mean, the reality is sometimes you engage these politicians when they are not in power and they tell, we are hungry, and this and that. When they come to power, the rhetoric is very different.
Well, like I said, in NDC, when we were in power, even 100 Ghana to a delegate, I haven't seen it anywhere. I didn't do that. I couldn't do it. I was a minister. I couldn't do it. I couldn't give up to 100 Ghana cedis for anybody to do TNT. I've been accused.
So you've done something before?
When you have to support your constituency, I don't give money to delegates. What we do is to support the constituency to be able to function.
Okay.
To bring people to go and come and vote and all that. Those ones, whether you like it or not, even a poor MP has to find a way of dealing with that. But not the vote buying kind of plenty money given to a delegate. That is not possible. because if you don't have the money, you can't do it. But let's examine the present, and I want to encourage you to follow the...
But there is this instance, though, lest I forget. I mean, we've seen a lot of stuff on the MPPs and money being thrown out. But I also recall, during your primaries, parliamentary, I want to believe, there was a woman who was even cited by your party. I think some action was taken. She was contesting in one of the places, and she had this car with, I've forgotten what they call that thing, a hood. So she could come out of the 4x4. Yeah. She was throwing money. Okay. I think you remember.
I saw it.
She was throwing out money. Not once, twice.
Yeah. I understand she
and
she a business.
I don't know, whatever business, but the optics.
The optics.
She was throwing out money.
Yeah. So those are the things. Well, if she is doing that, she's a businesswoman. I hear she came from outside the country or something like that. She had money and she wanted to win an election, and eventually she lost. It's not easy. NDC, normally you can't use money to get the people. I have several examples. I don't want to give them here, where people demonstrated a lot of wealth and didn't win their elections.
Right.
We've gone to the point where we look at the quality of the person rather than the monetary gifts. But let's examine. I want you guys to in the media to begin to examine the monies doing the rounds right now, and whether we shouldn't be questioning them. The present delegates.
As for question, we ought to, and that is why I agree, especially when and it's something I'm waiting for when it comes to Cecilia Dapa, for example. Establish the source of your wealth. How did you get these sums of money? And I really wish we could do that for all former and current ministers, all former and current members of parliament, just to see what is in there. And I think our regime of, and that is why I agree with that move for the public officers bill, to ensure that your sources of wealth, accountability, and what you may acquire in government are streamlined, so we can know when you came into power and you declared your assets, these were all the things you had. When you are exiting, what are the things you have? We've had people, young as I am, who have probably not done any work like I have worked for many, many, many years now, all of a sudden buying houses in certain places that for you, it may take you even a century and you wouldn't acquire that kind of wealth. Imagine a young person close to my age purchasing a house in the AU village. Someone who practically hasn't done any work goes into government. I mean, these are stories from both ends. What do we do?
That's the question, and that's the issue we take with individuals and politicians and parties and governments, that you bring them to question how their money to secure the monies they have secured to do what they have done within the space of time that they are in operation. They are functioning as government officials. And it's important for the media to hinge on that, to get onto that and begin to question it and frighten politicians away from, taking public money and displaying it the way we do it. It's important for us, important for the government, but not to give them the leverage of all the time doing everything we need to do. And then rather than blaming us, you are praised everywhere. Oh, he got this, he got that. I'm blamed for most of the time that, he is in government, he was a minister, he had nothing. As if it's an offense, So I think that...
Kwame Nkrumah left office with nothing. When he was ousted, he had nothing.
Nothing.
Even what was left by way of a building, from the many facilities he built across the country, over 17,000 of them. We'll get to Saglemi and affordable housing. But the ones he built in South Suntresu, here in Accra, Latebi Okoshi, in many different parts of the country, not even one did he keep for himself. In fact, even what he had put up, Pidiasi, he gave back to us for use, for our leaders. And our leaders, NDC and MPP, use it today when, in terms of the give back, it's not really there. So I agree with you. It should be more selfless. And I don't know why our rhetoric is like this, because when you go to the US, for example, presidents make their money after they have served their term.
Yeah.
Then they deliver speeches and they do this and they do that. And that is where they earn about 100,000, 200,000 per event. That's how some of them make a lot of their money. Here, our people rob the leaders, rob the people blind. Which then brings me to two issues that I'm hoping we can wrap with. The Bank of Ghana, are you going to be joining your caucus to, so to speak, picket? You've given the Bank of Ghana, it's the governor and his deputies an ultimatum, 21-day ultimatum, that if they don't resign, you'll be hitting them and hoping that you will compel them to resign. I know why, but explain to the people of Ghana why you are embarking on this.
Well, the Bank of Ghana is a lender of last resort, is a supervisor of all the banks. It instills discipline in the banks, and we have seen that over the years, banks are closed down because they are unable to manage their resources. And so they violate the banking rules, and so the Bank of Ghana, rather than correcting or stabilizing them, helping them to stabilize, they close them down. It shows that there must be discipline in how we manage our banking affairs. The Bank of Ghana has demonstrated that it is not disciplined in what it's supposed to do. It has, without resort to any legal principle, committed to print 80 billion Ghana cedis, borrowed half of it to government, now tells government it is unable, it is forgiving government for everything it has done. It means that this is done without recourse to parliament, without recourse to the people. The Bank of Ghana, in the end, has lost about 55 billion. It's recourse a loss of about 55 billion Ghana cedis, meaning that its equity has come to zero. And so this is a government institution, a state institution that is most important, very, very important in our monetary policy. First of all, it controls the policy, the fiscal policy, manages the fiscal policy. It controls the monetary policy. It determines how even people are employed. If they want people to be employed, they lower the interest rates, money is available, they're invested, and they're able to make money. They're able to create jobs for people. When there's inflation, it has a way of dealing with it. So it has a key role to play in running the economy. In all the stands that it has a role to play in creating a situation where we can have a strong and viable economy, it has failed. And so we think that this failure is also because of the human factor. Imagine spending $130 million Ghana cedis in servicing their vehicles only. Can you imagine that?
Purchase of computers, many millions, benefits to directors, all of that. And you're seeing increments in a year when we're trying to get an IMF deal over 240%, 87%, 140% year on year. So those are the reasons. But is asking them to step aside the way to go, especially where at the point we find ourselves? Is it the best option to trigger the nuclear option, so to speak, and say the governor and his deputies should go? Then we replace them, and then what? At least they have institutional memory. They've been there.
I mentioned to you that much of the challenges they have is a result of human factor, inability to say no to insistence on government to do what they are supposed to not to do. To do the right, be seen doing the right. They can't be seen doing the right. They seem to be an appendage of government and then fails in that independent stance that is required of them. And their failure is seen in the details of the accounts they have presented to us. And we think that with such glaring failure, they have no role to continue to be in that office. In fact, I saw A+. A+ said that instead of going to commit suicide, you are still insisting and you are still there.
And on the back of all of that, the central bank is also planning on putting up a new headquarters worth $250
million.
About 2.8 billion Ghana cedis.
Yes.
Only God knows how we can deal with that.
But you see, in the absence of reserves, they now have only 8 days reserves. And what do you use reserves for? To acquire assets and to do this, that. So you don't have assets. I mean, you don't have reserves. You are using... Where are you getting this money to go and put up the building?
Well, only time
That's
will
part
tell.
of the irresponsibility.
We have to go. So I want us to quickly touch in the next 2 minutes and wrap with Saglemi. Everything that has happened. I had Sam George join me here a few days ago, talk about the fact that, you know, and it's within his constituency, Ningo Pram Pram.
Yes.
His family gave out the land for a public enterprise. Now, if we are thinking of making it a private enterprise, there are dynamics to follow. Government simply cannot do that. And he has said, I mean, your party has said you would resist any attempt at doing that. You are warning private investors not to go near it because should you come to power, you would take them on. Sam George says about $7 million worth of items, doors, fittings, and all of that were stolen, and that at a point, he, together with his team, caught police officers, national security operatives, doing this in a Kia Bongo or whatever, carted them off to the Chopoli police station for action. Till today, nothing has happened.
Can we agree that this is a cause of financial loss to the states and that the government, the whole of the Nana Addo's government, must be held responsible for causing financial loss to the states? Because, like I said, government is a continuum. You have come to office, you've come to meet this situation there. You have allowed it to go to the point when even state officials are stealing from what is supposed to be an investment for the people. You have allowed the thing to get to the point where rot has taken place, destruction has taken place. Rather than continuing, they have gone to do some new houses somewhere. I mean, this is unacceptable, and government must be held responsible, and I think that is a cause of financial loss to the states, and must be brought to the book.
Final words, Rashid. It's been an interesting conversation, but we have to go. We'll be taking a break shortly. Final words?
Oh, well, final words. First of all, I think that Ghanaians must begin to wake up, and we have a big opportunity not to encourage the coup d'etats happening elsewhere, but to use our tongue to take a decision. I've been saying that anybody who continues to talk about breaking the eight is not a patriotic citizen. With all the failures we have been observing and we have seen, with all the backward economic decisions that have been taken, with all the failures of governance, you can still think about asking for eight for 4 more years. And it shows that you are not patriotic enough, you don't love Ghana. It must come to a point that we use our fingers to take a decision. That decision must be taken in 2024. And I think that Ghanaians must wake up to take that decision before the worst can happen to us. And secondly, wishing to let everybody know that we in NDC are prepared. We are committed to do the right. We have learned our lessons, and we want to make sure the right thing is done. We want to change the circumstances of governance and create more confidence in the Ghanaian.
Okay. Rashid Pelpuo, thank you so much for joining the conversation. Rashid Pelpuo is Member of Parliament for Was Central. He joined us this morning for breakfast. Right before I go, because this message came through as well, I'm going to do it now. A very happy birthday to Mr. Edem Riverson Saw. Mr. Edem Riverson Saw, Assistant Music Director, Bethel Revival Choir. Edem, a very happy birthday to you, and it's coming from Jessica Ahedo and all of us to you. Do stay with us on the AM show. There's a lot of action coming your way. Up next, you don't want to miss it. We'll be right back.
Thank you so much for staying on the AM show. To our next big story today, we are speaking to the Ghana Nurse Midwife Trainees Association, and they are here because they haven't been paid their allowances. And this was generated such a huge conversation in the build-up to the elections because, as you were aware or are aware, the allowances were scrapped by the previous NDC administration, and the campaign promise of President Akufo Addo, then candidate Akufo Addo, was to reintroduce these allowances. Now, the nurses or the trainee nurses haven't been paid for more than 14 months, and they have some concerns to raise. And this morning I've been joined by Lenof Amponsa. He is the National Secretary for International Relations, of the Ghana Nurses Midwife Trainee Association, and Isaac Nana Kofi Arthur is National Coordinating Secretary of the same association. Great to have you here this morning. All right, so for 14 months you've not been paid. Government says it doesn't have money for a lot of things. Okay, so I mean, right here on this show we have conversations. Contractors have not been paid. Even some CTAG, for example, which is still on strike, has not been paid. And the response we get all the time is, we understand that the current situation we're in, government doesn't have money. Can't you give government some more time while it figures everything out? You know, let me start with you, Lenof.
All right. I think we've given government enough time. The training nurses, it's been almost 1 year now that government haven't paid our allowance. And we've given them enough time. At this time, we are suffering. The training nurses are suffering. We are saying that there's no money, but the teacher trainees are being paid. That is our worry. This was a promise that was given to both training nurses and teacher trainees. So why is it that at this point in time, government is saying they don't have money? They are saying we are going to IMF. We are now at IMF. Russia-Ukraine war. These are the excuses government always use. But why is it that our other brothers, they are being paid?
I find it interesting that you say the teachers are being paid, because we get messages from them all the time about they being owed, teacher trainee allowances. So is it the case that government doesn't owe them as much in terms of the months? Yours is 14 months, but government may be owing them maybe lesser than that? Because what I know is that many of them are also not being paid.
As we are talking now, I think for the teacher trainees, those that completed recently, they've all been paid. But when you take the trainee nurses, when you take 2020, those who completed in the year 2020, government, they have an arrears of 1 month. Those who completed in 2021, they also have an arrears of 3 months. Those who just completed in 2022, that's the nursing trainees, 12 months. Whilst the teacher trainees, all their monies have been paid. So this is our worry, that what is happening? What is the government doing as of now? In fact, we are suffering, coupled with the fees that we have been paying each semester, not less than 3,000 Ghana cedis every semester. And we can attest to the fact that during the last vacation, students spent only 1 week at the house and they went back to school, going to pay another 3,000, more than 3,000 Ghana cedis again. And we are not receiving any allowance as government promised. So this is the reason why now we can't just sit aloof again.
Okay, let me come to you, Isaac. And this is a big conversation. It sounds controversial, but there are those who think that, look, we shouldn't even be giving you allowances in the first place. You should be treated like any other tertiary institution. So people go to the universities, if they need money, they sign up for the loans. Why should we give nursing trainees or midwife trainees allowances? Why?
Thank you for the question. And my greetings to our cherished viewers and listeners too. With nurses, I'd like to say per research, we provide about 40% of healthcare services when taking percentage. And we are essential workers, as you know. As students, we are being trained to become professional nurses. And the question you asked, why are we not being treated at tertiary? The government said, I will pay you allowances. And most people, when they are going, they fend for themselves. And so with these allowances or stipends, that's what we use to pay the fees. Sometimes if we go for clinicals, we don't have facilities around where we stay. So we have to move these allowances are there to help to cushion us a bit, to help with support us in doing this. The government is a promise to us, and it has to be fulfilled.
Okay, so I get the point of it being a promise and the fact that it must be fulfilled. But as you sit here, sitting and looking at me realistically, your colleagues in other institutions are receiving education for other things. Doctors are essential workers as well. In the medical school, they don't receive allowances. So, I mean, realistically, from where you sit, I understand that it was a promise that must be honored. But should this be something we should continue? Seeing that, based on your response, there was some level of expectation.
Yes.
So if that expectation was not there, some of you would not make a commitment to even go to the nursing school. So because you knew that you'd be getting allowances, you checked your finances and your ability to pay and survive, and that's why you went to school. But clearly it's a problem. Clearly, right?
Yes.
It's a problem. Government is unable to pay. Should this be something we should be continuing?
Yes, I would say it's something that government needs to, because a research that we did, a lot of training nurses bought the idea that of the government prior to the 2016 elections.
But you're being disappointed, and that's what I'm saying, moving forward. If you didn't expect it, you wouldn't be disappointed. Yes. So should we just, like some argue, revert to what the NDC introduced and said, look, you're not going to pay teachers and nursing trainees, so that just like at the tertiary level, everybody knows that it's not something they should expect. So they go in knowing fully that they, their guardians or their supporters would have to fend for their time in school.
Okay. So with what you just said, those in the tertiary universities, tertiary institutions, that the universities and other public institutions, they are being offered student loans. Let me put it that way. But we are not qualified to have those loans. And these allowances are what help us to also support ourselves in school. So that's what I would like to say in regards to that.
Right. I am told that we've been joined by your president, Pascal Edum. Is he via Zoom? Hello, Pascal. How are you? Great to have you here also to talk about your arrears. Clearly, government is unable to pay. I just want to know from you, have you tried to interact with the sector minister or, appeal to the finance minister? 14 months is a long time to have waited. What exactly has been happening throughout this period?
Thank you so much, madam. We've tried our best as national executives, and the patience of the trainee nurse and midwives is something that should be appreciated. Because over a year now, we've not received the allowance, and as national executives, we kept out our best possible to engage our stakeholders and the relevant persons who are, as far as the allowance is concerned, should be contacted. And on all the engagements we've made, there have not been any positive feedback as to when the allowance will be paid.
Who exactly did you engage? Who exactly did you engage with?
We engaged the ministry. That's the Ministry of Health. That is the Department of the HR, the Health Training Institution unit as well. We've engaged them on the issue of the allowance.
Pascal, I mean, not to sound insensitive, but clearly, with the times that we are in and with all the effort you've put in and see no results, I mean, I understand that this was a campaign promise that had to be honored or has to be honored, but what are your members doing about this? I mean, I feel that by now you should be looking for alternatives to support yourself. Shouldn't that be the case?
Thank you so much, madam. When you look at this particular issue, when you look at trainee nurses and midwives, these people we are talking about, they are essential people when it comes to the health delivery. When the health sector, the backbone of this particular health sector of the country depends solely on these people. And if we are saying that at high times like this, we should place less priority on people who contribute much to the health delivery of this country, then it means that the future of this country should be shaken, because these are people that risk their own lives, their families and other persons to support this country. And the Aswas administration, when they came, there was something we call the clinical token. And this clinical token was established after the research that was made by our mother union. And they said they're going to give them a tabletop token of 150 Ghana cedis. But trainee nurses and midwives together with our mother union, saw to it that was nothing worth the work that was done by trainers and midwives. Because unlike other professions, where they have to go to maybe on vacation, they'll have to fend for themselves, where they are entitled to student loans. Trainers and midwives are not entitled to student loans. And even during vacation, they have to go to the various health facilities. And depending on how far your facility is to your house, you have to go and rent an apartment. You have to feed yourself. You have to run night shifts. Even in the pandemic, where people were being asked to stay at home, trainers and midwives were still at the various hospitals. They are prone to a lot of infections. Their families are exposed. And these are people we should place much priority upon. And it is high time that I see that, you see, a country that, I keep on saying that a country that is not worth honoring their heroes is not worth dying for. Because when you look at the sector at which people like this are putting up their best, their commitment and their expertise to ensure that these people of this country, their health delivery is supported, and we are placing less priority on them based on their campaign promises. It's not just a campaign promise that was made, but I'm seeing that the people reason with them because they show to it that the essence of the trainers and midwives to the country should not be placed less priority upon.
And doesn't this signal to you that probably it's time for us to relook at this whole concept of allowances? The Mahama administration scrapped the nurse and trainee and teacher trainee allowances and offered student loans to you, just like it happens for other people in other institutions. Doesn't this suggest to you that it's time to, take a second look at the concept of allowances?
Thank you so much. That's why I earlier on stated that when you look at the allowance, it's not just anything that maybe you feel like giving it to them because they're not worth it. But when you look at the importance of the allowance to trainers and midwives, I think that no Ghanaian would ever protest that trainers and midwives don't deserve allowances. Because somebody that during his tenure of education, while the person is even still a student, would have to be rendering service about 40%. That's a significant percentage that should be looked at. Because when somebody is rendering about 40% of health delivery to this particular country, the person don't deserve to be paid.
So you're saying that the allowance is justified because while you're receiving training in school, you are offering your services as well.
Yes, because when you look at the importance of it, that's what I'm saying, that the importance of the allowances, these people that I'm talking of, they render service, and about 40%, that was conducted by our Mother Association, 2015. When you look at it, 40% of health delivery is a significant figure. And when you look at this, you don't expect that this person who have to go and even rent an apartment, the person have to feed himself, he has to transport himself all days long, coupled with the fees they are paying. This is just something, even looking at the amount that are being given, could not meet this, but it's a form of appreciation that should be looked upon, and should place a priority on them as they help in the delivery of the health system.
How many of trainee nurses work within the sector? How many of them are working? Can you hazard a guess?
The trainers and midwives like this, we have something we call the internal clinicals and the external. Mm-hmm. The internal is when they are on campus. When they are on campus, there's a period of weeks that are allocated that they have to go to the various facilities. So this is scheduled when they come back to the resume school.
So this is almost like an internship.
Yes. So when they are on campus, they go to the various facilities for some weeks to work. When they vacate again, they'll have to still go during their vacation period, depending on when they are vacated and the time.
But I'm sorry, Pascal. I mean, I'm just trying to understand. So, is this not a part of your course requirement? So, for example, I went to the Ghana Institute of Journalism, and as part of my 4-year training, I was expected to have at least some internship during the summer break in my 3rd year. It was mandatory. It was part of my course requirement. These clinicals that you're talking about, are they not part of your course requirements?
Yes, sharing not from the fact that they are part of our course requirement, but I'm just saying that the fact that it's part of our course requirement does not also differ from the fact that the contribution we are making to the country should not be looked upon. That's what I'm saying, that these are persons we should be looking up to. They form the backbone of this particular health sector. And trainers and midwives who form the backbone of this particular sector, whatever treatment we are giving to them, depicts what the future of the health sector would be, since they are the backbone of this particular health sector.
Interesting. Let me come back into the studio. So, Lennof, everything points to the fact that it may take a while before you get your monies, right? how have you been surviving then? Because the picture I'm getting from all your responses suggests to me that you are almost helpless without the trainee allowances. I mean, I know some people may find it difficult to believe, but how are you surviving?
It's not easy for us at all. Though as a national executive, we have been encouraging our members to engage in entrepreneurship and other programs, but that alone is not solving the problem. The issue is that we expect government to fulfill the promises that he gave to us. In fact, as of now, even when you are in the house as a trainee nurse, parents have the view that you are receiving some amount of money. Either you are lying to them that government is not paying, because you might have a brother who is also in the teacher trainees, and they will always be receiving their money. Then the nursing trainees are not receiving. This is our issue. We are suffering. We don't know even how some of our members are even coping. Though we engage them that they should engage in entrepreneurship and other things, but it's not easy.
Isaac, what would you have done as an association if you were still in the times when there were no allowances? It's almost as if without the allowances you can't survive. What would you have done if, well, this government decided not to reintroduce the allowances? Do I get the impression that most of you wouldn't have gone to school at all? Is that the case?
That's not the case. With this issue, if it was cancelled, we all knew, we have the assurance that it's cancelled, and to that, there's maybe an alternative that will be posted, because even once we are done with school, we are not posted. So if we be posted, or they are using that money, channeling it into developing different facilities or health facilities, or developing or providing logistics, we are cool with it. But they came in to say we are going to provide, hence we have to provide it. That's what I have to say with regard to that.
Right. Well, you're hoping that through this medium or channel, your concerns will be addressed. You say that you have tried to reach out to your HR department or the Ministry of Health, but you've had no successes. I mean, you can only be hopeful at this point, right?
Exactly.
You're just hanging on to hope, isn't it?
Yes, that is it. But if of all our engagement and we still see this government is not paying heed to us, I think we'll find out our way.
And when the other way is what?
Definitely, we might speak the language that government understands.
Which is?
As we all know, we might go on demonstration, possibly, because we are suffering. As of now, we are suffering. We don't know what to do. So if government is not going to listen to us, because prior to the 2016 election, a lot of us bought that idea, and in fact, we campaigned well for this government, all with the hope that yes, one administration cancelled the allowance, one came to is coming to restore. So
there's a clear case of disappointment.
Yes. Totally. This government has indeed disappointed us. We don't want to miss ways.
How much are you paid every month?
Every month we are paid 399 Ghana cedis. 399, and just look at 399 Ghana cedis. It can't do anything. But at least when it comes, it will cushion us a bit. 399. Compare that to the fees that we have been paying a semester. The training nurse pays not less than 3,500 cedis per semester. And in a year, we have 2 semesters. So just compare, even our brothers in the universities, they don't even pay that fees. They pay fees in a year, but we pay in semesters. 3,500. Our handouts are out.
No, well, some universities pay in semesters that I know.
Oh, that is what I'm saying for degree nurses. Okay. Yes, for degree nurses, those in the public institutions, they pay in a year. But when we come to the diploma, that is the trainee nurses, we pay per semesters and not less than 3,500 Ghana cedis. With this, our handouts is not part. Our hostels, facilities, they are all out. So just imagine how our parents are even suffering.
And to add to that, most of the training institutions are vacating. And, the academic calendar has been changed. They'll be returning to school in no time. So it's also another burden to them. So
Yeah, for last semester, for example, students spent only 1 week at home. Then they resumed the following, and they were expected to pay 3,500 Ghana cedis within that short time. We asked ourselves,
but that has not been the case always. So
no.
there's something happening to the system and the curriculum that's making it so.
Exactly. That is the reason why at this time we are calling on government that at least the 1 week, we spent only 1 week at home. So at least government should come to our aid and support us with this allowance.
Okay. I know that there may be a lot of questions on the minds of people watching us, but let me just come to you, Pascal, as we wrap up the conversation. Your colleagues in the studio have told me about what the likely response will be if government does not heed your call to pay your 14-month allowance arrears. But as president of the group, I can imagine that you have a lot to shoulder as well. But I mean, honestly, for you, what genuinely should be the way forward in terms of addressing your concerns, but also finding a long-lasting solution or a long-lasting intervention to this issue of allowances and non-payment and cancellations and reintroductions? Briefly.
Thank you so much, Madam. That's what I'm saying, that when you look at the current issue, the issue of allowance, I don't want it to be like it's a political issue that people should be looking at.
Oh, no, but it is a political issue, Pascal. I mean, whether you like it or not, it is a political issue. I'm sorry, but that's the dimension it's taking now, because one government comes in to cancel, another reintroduces. So there's a political dimension and twist to it. So, I mean, it is what it is.
So that's what I'm saying, that when we look at it, that's what I'm saying, earlier on stated that trainees and midwives, they form the backbone of this particular health sector. And what I want is, if you want things to go on well, when you look at the various stakeholders, nobody will understand the reason why a student should not be able to pay school fees and then should continue to fend. But they will want to understand why maybe students should be able to understand government, because if government is not able to pay our allowances, we should cope with government because we are in hard times. But how many principals in this country are ready to listen to students when they are not able to fend for their fees because of their hard times? So what I wanted us to consider is making the trainees and midwife allowance a government policy instead of a political on political grounds as a political campaign of a promise.
All right.
Making it a government policy would go a long way to help. It should come to stand still, where any government that comes would have to do it, because considering the explanations we all have stipulated before, the media and then the entire Ghanaians, I think that they should look at it and value it as and place much priority on it.
Pascal, how many nursing and midwife trainees belong to your association?
We are over 100,000 members.
You are over 100,000, okay. So per my calculation of 399 times 14, that's each of you receiving 5,586 Ghana cedis, right? Times 100,000. That will be, wow, that's a lot. That's about 558 million, right? 558 million. Well, we hope to get a response from the health ministry on this, and I wish you all the best in your endeavors. But I know many others would also be thinking, if you can afford over 3,000 cedis a semester to pay your fees, why should 300 cedis be such a bother? But I see why you are here, because cumulatively that can pay another semester's fees, right? Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen. Pascal Adumbisa is president of the Ghana Nursing Midwives Trainee Association, and in the studio I had to my immediate left Leonard Amponsa, who is the National Secretary for International Relation Affairs, and Isaac Danakofi Arthur, who is the National Coordinating Secretary. Well, that will be it for our conversation on the nursing trainees who are not receiving their allowances. Their demand to government is that, just like the teacher trainees, they must receive what is due them. So we've got a couple of conversations to have here as well on the AM show. Do stay with us. We'll be right back with more. Hello there. Thank you so much for staying on the AM show. Some 25 minutes after 9. And like I told you, there's an interesting conversation I'm just about to have. Please, you don't want to miss it. Don't you touch your remote. You know why when I introduce my guest. And this morning, I've been joined by Dr. Martin Egblewogbe, Director, Peja. That's a literary festival in Accra. He's also the director of the Writers Project of Ghana. And also, I've been joined by Nana Daakwa Sichiama. She is a feminist activist and a writer. Good morning to you, Doc and Ma'am. Good to have you here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right.
Good to be here.
And they're here because there is a prize, which I'll tell you about it much later, and I find it very interesting. It's the Abena Krantema Oral History Prize. And I'll start with Nana Daakwa because this is more very personal for you, right?
Absolutely.
So tell us about how this prize scheme started.
Yes. So my grand aunt, Abena Krantema, who the prize is named after, died when she was over 100 years old. I was always struck by the difference between her and my grandfather. She wasn't educated simply because she was a girl, whereas my grandfather was educated and actually published several books before he passed. And so a number of years ago, I started to interview my grand aunt about her life experiences. And I learned so much. It was so fascinating. She told me about some of our ancestors, women, who, many, many decades ago, probably a century ago, traveled on foot from present-day Kumasi to where we are from now in Kweochundrase because they wanted to find men to marry. And
wow.
Exactly. And I was like, oh, wow. These are strong women. They go after what they want.
Yes.
And I just learned so much about our history from her. And I just thought, she's an oral historian. She has all of these stories, and nobody's written them down. My grandfather has written his stories down, but who's writing her story? And I felt it was my responsibility as a younger person, as an educated person who has access to, mobile phone to document her story. And I did that for a number of years, found it really interesting. And I spoke to my family and I said, we need to encourage other people to do this. And so the family established the Abena Krantema Oral History Prize. We approached Writers Project of Ghana because they do amazing literary work. And we said, can you support us to keep this prize going? And that's when the Writers Project of Ghana came on board. And it's been a wonderful partnership.
All right. So, Doc, tell me what convinced you about partnering this prize scheme?
We had focused all the time on literature from the written perspective, And so once she brought this idea, and it was oral literature, essentially, we found out that it was something which would expand our reach, actually let us hear voices which typically we wouldn't hear. Beyond that, she was very convincing in making it clear that these are voices which would otherwise be lost, And there's another part, I haven't told you about it though, but it, of course, increases the interaction between younger people and the older people. And I think that sort of fostering an enhanced relationship is very precious. So there are many reasons why we thought that we should throw our weight besides into this prize. Apart from the fact that Nana Daakwa is a really nice person. It's always good to support nice people.
Okay, so I'm going to share my regrets with you because we're talking about this, right? My grandmother passed, my paternal grandmother passed at 95. And I remember my uncle encouraging us to go sit and talk with her and have conversations. And for him, he was more interested in us understanding our roots, where we came from, who we are. Because my grandmother, so you see, I'm a bit light-skinned. My grandmother was lighter than I am. I understand there's a history to it that I'm not even aware of, you understand? So there's some great-grandparent who's not originally Ghanaian and all those kind of things. And we kept postponing it, and I had a call one day in Accra that she had passed, sadly. So it's one regret that I really have, because then when people ask me, because when my dad is darker skinned than you, and my mom is not as fair as me. So people are like, okay, where'd you get your shade from? And I don't know. So thank you so much for doing this. And for me, what Doc said, which is also very important, is that it will foster relationships and build greater interaction between the older and the younger generations. I am fascinated by this. But let's get practical here, Nana Darko. How do our audience, participate in this contest, which will eventually get one of them taking the prize?
Yes, no, absolutely. It's very, very easy to participate. We just ask that you make some time to sit with an older person. And we want you to prioritize people who cannot tell their own stories. They can speak to you in any language, any Ghanaian language. And you can just use your mobile phone to record. It can be an audio recording. It can be a video camera recording. And it can be anything that they find interesting. It could be about a moment in Ghana's history that they were a part of. It could be about something really personal. In your case, for example, the genesis of your family, where you all come from.
Right.
We think that's all valuable knowledge. So just record it. The Writers Project of Ghana has a fantastic website. Go onto the website. It has details of how to submit and submit. We give cash prizes to the winners.
Yes.
We're giving cash prizes to the first 3 winners this year, right?
Okay. All right, that sounds exciting, especially in these times. You just want to get yourself some extra cash. And so this does not necessarily have to be someone you're related to. It could be somebody in your community,
Exactly.
right?
Absolutely, yes. It can be anybody that you think has an interesting story to tell. And to be honest, I feel like we all have interesting stories to tell. I'm a writer myself, and I really believe in documenting people's stories. And you'll be surprised. All you need to do is sit down with somebody and say, tell me about your life, or tell me about a key moment in your life. And you'll be amazed at the experiences that they can share with you.
Fantastic. So, let me come to you, Doc. So this must strictly be oral, right? It has to be something we hear.
Yes.
Right. So, I just want a bit of clarity here, because you may find somebody who is speaking in a certain Ghanaian language. Is it for me as the person engaging them to translate, or it's fine if we communicate in a language that is not, a dominant one across the country?
Actually, it's fine. We want it to be as natural as possible. So you relax, do the recording in whatever language. It puts pressure on the team, but it's a great challenge. We go around finding people who can speak that exact dialect, get a transcription, and we will award you regardless of the language. I want to add also to what Nana Darko said. The audio or video shouldn't be more than 30 minutes.
Okay.
The sweet spot is around 25 minutes, So, and it would be a good idea also to prepare before doing the recording. So be sure that the person is ready to talk. What are you going to talk about, etc., so that you get a good recording. The quality must be very good, because we'd like to use it for all sorts of other things after that. But it's a really simple prize to enter, and you can visit our website. That's writersprojectghana.com. The prize is open until the 8th of September.
Okay.
2023.
That's enough time.
Yeah, and
about a month.
Awards will be given during the festival on the 15th of October. That's when the award prize ceremony will be.
I am super excited that you spoke about documenting all these entries, because I would love to listen to some of these stories. So how are they made available for other, people in the public space to consume? I understand that you've been doing this for some time, so there should be some we can go watch.
Absolutely, you can go listen, and I think that this is why working with Joy News has become very important, because they will be collaborating to put these recordings into a package that people can go and listen to.
Right.
So the recordings are there; they've been made available to your team, and so people can connect with the stories from Joy News.
All right, so you just stay glued to Joy News. We are your most credible news source. And we always love a challenge, so we're excited to be part of this. And I'd definitely be letting you in on how you can access these wonderful stories that hitherto would go to the grave with our old folks. So I am super grateful. I am a literature student, so I appreciate arts and literature a lot, and I'm grateful that you're doing this. So your final words. You're looking to 5 years from now. Do you hope to expand this concept? Are you looking Africa? Are you looking global? Just share the future with us.
Absolutely. I'm Pan-African. So everything I do, I think not just of my country, Ghana, but the whole of the continent, because the whole of the continent is our home. We're starting here because this is where we're based, but we have Pan-African ambitions. And the idea is that these stories can be translated into different forms. Martin spoke about the podcast idea we're exploring with Joy FM. We want to have an archival website where anybody around the world can access the stories. Obviously, we're saying people can speak in any language because we think it's important to document our own indigenous languages. But then when we're making this Pan-African, we have to now think of how we translate those stories into languages that may be more widely spoken across the continent. So in 5 years' time, this prize is going to be even bigger and better, and hopefully even more people come on board to support us, because that's what will enable us to expand and grow.
Right. Okay. And I'm just wondering, sorry for the qualified persons. I'm using my word advisedly. Is there any criteria you're looking at? Should you be of a certain age? What exactly qualifies me to be a part of this whole scheme?
So the person doing the recording can be anyone 18 years and above, right? But the person who is going to narrate the oral history has to be a woman above 65 years, resident in Ghana, and would ask for documentary evidence to show that the person is at least that age. Yeah. So that's all that it takes. The person who is doing the recording can be anyone. I mean.
Yeah, it's above 18.
Above 18.
But we're going for women. because like Nana Darkwa highlighted, I mean, we always hear the men.
Yes.
Some way, somehow.
Yes.
The men are given more space, more opportunity. So please allow us, please, it must be a woman, 65 years and above, to tell a very wonderful story that has historical context, that is one that others would like to listen to, and it's something that you treasure and would want to lose. Like what Nana Darkwa said, I never knew that decades ago women were going after the men they wanted. You know, there's a whole debate about whether a woman should propose to a man. I mean, and I'm listening to you and I'm like,
this is why I love these stories, because you actually realize that we've always been bold, we've always been courageous as African women, right? I think we've actually become more conservative in recent years, and I think we need to go back to being the bolder versions of who we were in the past.
You're perfectly right, because you hear stories of Yas Antua and your grandmothers, and I'm like, oh, please, we're not having a debate about women proposing to men again. Decades ago, they were walking all the way from present-day Kumasi to Kwewu just because they were looking for men to marry. Please, don't let that be an argument again. But your final words, Doc, on this wonderful, wonderful prize and why we must all take it seriously. And the call for sponsorship, right? The people who are interested in preserving literature, preserving history, how they can contact you, how they can be a part of this.
Okay, so let me start with the sponsorship, and we have to appreciate the family of Nana Darkwa for actually putting their money where their mouth is and supporting the prize this while. Of course, we are open to sponsorship so that it becomes bigger. I must point out that there's going to be a dedicated website just for the Abena Krantuma Oral History Prize. We expect that it's going to be live sometime later this year, and there's going to be a lot of archive material there. But right now, I encourage everybody to try and enter the prize. It is easy to do so, and this is an opportunity that we shouldn't miss to get the stories from people whilst they are still alive. When they go, that's it.
Gone.
So let's do it now.
Yeah, don't be like me, living in regret forever. As long as I live, honestly. I was just thinking about my grandmother a few days ago, and I was like, that was such a missed opportunity. I thought she was always going to be around, you know. So, Nana, your last words as well.
My last words, just to say it's important for us to document our own story, especially as Africans, to recognize how diverse we've always been. And when we speak to the elders, we will get to know our own stories. And that's super important.
Thank you so much for joining me this morning. That's Dr. Martin Egblewogbe, Director, Peja, a literary festival in Accra. We'll be talking about that much later. He's also the Director of the Writers Project of Ghana. I also had Nana Darkwa Chiama. She's a feminist activist and a writer. And they were here to share with us the very wonderful, wonderful Abena Krantuma Oral History Prize. You want to enter, just go onto the Writers Project of Ghana's website and follow all the instructions, and let us put together the very wonderful history that we all have through oral literature. I don't want to end this conversation, but I have to go. We'll be back with more. Do stay. It's time to get interactive with you, and guess who joined me? Benjamin Akufo. Someone whispered that we seem to have something
we're
going
color
with
coding today. So burgundy and peach and all of that. And guess what? Our producer, Kingsley, is also... totally unplanned. We all came in some shades of rose, peach, pink,
and your tires.
burgundy.
It's really nice.
The economy has affected my tires.
Is it a gift or is...
Oh, no, this one, I think I remember buying it.
You remember buying it?
I remember buying it.
Okay.
You know those luscious ties? But some of them
Really
are pretty expensive.
But it looks good, so... Yeah. Well, it's now time to get interactive with you. The number to call 0302-211-691. Yeah, I didn't forget today. There was one day it just evaporated from my mind.
Happens to the best of us every now and then.
Not today. We've been having a lot of conversation, and Benjamin has been hosting Dr. Pelpuo and speaking on a myriad of issues. And I've been speaking to the Ghana Nursing Midwives Trainee Association, who are demanding their allowances. And then, so we've been talking about the Abena Krantema Oral History Prize. Benjamin, look, I'm just so in love with the concept. I'm in love with everything around it and how we're all being encouraged to have conversations with our older folks.
Yeah. And of course, these, it takes me back to by the fireside and some things that...
Honestly,
is that what came to your mind?
Honestly, that was what I pictured in my mind of just, young people just sitting and just listening to the old folks.
Yeah.
And that's how we conserve history, we preserve history, So we have our first caller from Bolga, Rafik. Benjamin.
Hello, Rafik.
Yeah, hello, good morning.
Good morning. What do you have on your mind?
Over the weekend, I sit on my own, then I reflect on the things that happen in the country. I've come to a realization that, especially, I'm sorry to say this, but our agents in the society, both educated and the illiterate, those who are above 15 and 60 years, they have failed us.
Oh, wow.
What we are seeing today is a reflection of what they saw yesterday or years back. That is the result of what you are seeing today. Whether your mama, Nana Akufo Addo, or Baumia, if you look at the lineup of people that are coming, which one of them we cannot point to, and we could see a bigger flare on his personal career or political career, all of them coming. So my worry is that the young people we have today, though we are trained and groomed by these aged persons, we should try and look back into what they take to train us. What went wrong in our bringing up, so that we could start making amends. What we are doing now, we are now being told tomorrow we will also be giving birth to children. Or what we are also inputting today, it will reflect in about 20, 30 years' time. But what we are seeing today, whether the person is in power or is not in power, even those retired teachers and nurses, whatever, they have failed us. That's why Ghana is in big mess today. Let me bring in something different. See Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, a generational thinker. What he did, he's dead and gone. But today we can still read history into his books and the knowledge he expressed in books. You know that this was a generational thinker. Few of his type existed. We couldn't implement things that he did. People that took over, both the military, the civilian, whatever, majority of them were corrupt. They are rot. And they only fed their families and friends. That is the result we are seeing today. So please, the aged persons, you have failed us. The young of today, my advice is that what we are doing today, each and every one of us should sit back and look into the future. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, Rafik, for sharing your thoughts all the way from Bolgatanga. And I can understand your exasperation with the system and how things have gone. But we keep praying for a better Ghana and better times ahead, sometime in the future. And for better leadership as well. The number to call 0302-211-691, 0302-211-691. Let's know what your thoughts are on the many issues we've been discussing on the show this morning. We have just a few minutes more to go before we knock off. So we'd love to hear from you. If you have any thoughts to share with us, this now is the time. We have a caller from Pandai. Hello? Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Is it Bala?
Yeah, it's Bala. I'm coming from Pantine.
Okay. What are your sentiments? What thoughts would you like to share with us this morning?
What I would like to share this morning is the youth of this country have lost the patriotism that they should have. The youth, we don't have the patriotism of this country at all. Let me give you an instance. With my brothers, we play this Saturday football soccer. And before we pray, we gather to pray. And I take it to myself every day after prayers, I say that we should say the pledge. Can you believe me? None of them, even we have officers within us, we don't even stand to say the pledge. Why? Because the love of the nation, the patriotism that is supposed to be within us is lost. There is no love for the country. We just live in this country. We wake up, we go to work. We don't mind anything at all that goes in about this country because we don't see future in this country.
So you're basically saying that sense of patriotism, from independence, when people were so passionate about Ghana, it's all gone.
It's all gone, my brother. It's all gone.
And
within my clique, I don't think if we will even partake in any election, because all we vote for are thieves. Excuse my word. They come, they enrich themselves, they enrich their family. That's all they do. If you want to be rich, just get yourself into politics. Our friends who are in politics now, we used to feed them, but now they have mansions, they have cars that we can't go even closer to them anymore.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for that revealing bit of sharing on the AM show. And you see, that is part of the reality that I speak of. You leave school with a certain crop of people. Some of them don't even get any employment. They go into politics and then boom, all of a sudden they're riding in the flashiest cars, putting up the biggest mansions and all that. And you ask yourself, how are they able to do it? Of course, when the youth don't see some reflection, some relationship between work and earnings, then they become despondent and they feel the political class is milking the system. And then when the Cecilia Dapa issue comes up, it only adds fire or pours kerosene on the fire. So when shall we get there when it comes to accountability, probity, and maybe the patriotism that Mandai spoke of? We have Yao joining the conversation from Kumasi. Good morning, Yao.
Good morning, senior brother.
I am Yao too, so it's you're my namesake. What are your thoughts for us this morning?
Yes, God bless you for the opportunity. And one thing I see about the problem we face in as a nation and the entire world is when the fear of God is absent. The fear of God. Truly, people go to church, people go to mosques, but the question is, how many of us truly fear God? It's not about church service attendance. I'm a Christian. I don't go to any church. But I wouldn't go and do anything which I know will bring the name of Ghana into disrepute.
Right.
Look at the national anthem. It starts with, God bless our homeland Ghana. Our forefathers knew, apart from God, nobody can bless us. Because if it's education, that will bless us. Our various presidents who have come and passed, they are all very much educated, our politicians. But what happened? If you're educated and you don't have the fear of God, you milk the country.
Yeah.
Look at the national pledge. It ends with, so help me God. So truly, our forefathers knew the God aspect. If the person doesn't fear God, you put the person in the government ministry, they will go there and will be doing their own thing. If they don't fear God, they will be doing their private businesses. They will not want to pay tax. So if the person doesn't fear God, then this is where the problem is. So it's basically the fear of God. Though we have churches, about 70% Ghanaians, we are Christians. We go to church, but truly we are not Christians. Because if 12 people, 12 disciples, were able to change the whole of Jerusalem, turn it outside down, how is there a country of about 70%? Let me leave Muslims and Christians. Let me leave Muslims and let's talk about that Christians. 70%. Our various presidents, starting from the late JG, coming to President Akufo, coming to the late Professor Nose, coming to President Mahama, and currently Nana Akufo Addo. Don't they all go to church? But what did their pastors tell them? Are they practicing the Bible? And truly, they are practicing what was inside the Bible, wouldn't be here. So we go to church, we are religious, but the fear of God.
Right. I hear you. Unfortunately, we have to move to our last caller, but you are spot on the matters you're talking about. And I've said it time and again, our leaders have been, by and large, in fact, completely Christian. Some think Hilal Iman was Muslim. He wasn't. And of course, he had a mix of traditional, whatever he believed in. But we've had, by and large, Christians. Why is the country what it is like? Momin is our last caller. Momin, you have some 30 seconds. Where are you calling from, Momin?
I'm calling from Wa.
Wa. Quick thoughts for us.
My question goes to, mine is a question going directed towards the Bank of Ghana, the governor of Ghana, Addison. I want to ask him whether indeed he was the one that supervised the revocation of indigenous licenses of indigenous banks that led to their collapse and destruction of businesses of our own Ghanaians, and whether indeed he is the same person who has led to the loss of over 60 billion Ghana cedis recorded for the Bank of Ghana. I want to ask him whether he's been fair to those people that he collapsed their banks due to the revocation of their licenses. Whether he's fair to them.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. We've come to the end of the show. But before we go, a very happy birthday to Professor Elvis Asare Bediako, Vice-Chancellor, University of Energy and Natural Resources. This is from alumni, staff, and students of the UNER and all of us here at the Multimedia Group. Professor Elvis Asare Bediako, Vice-Chancellor of the UNER or the UENR. A very happy birthday to you. And right before we go, Awake Purified Drinking Water is calling. If you've not taken a drink today, well, you ought to be looking forward to that. It's premium purified water treated through a strict purification process, and they have the perfect sizes for everyone. 330, 500, 750 milliliters, 1.5 liters as well. And for those who are thinking of something for your office or home, 19-liter jar bottles. Ideal. So wherever you are, just think Awake Purified Drinking Water. It's another quality product by Casapreco Company Limited. The heartwarming bit, for every purchase of Awake Purified Drinking Water that you make, they donate a token into the kitty of the National Cardiothoracic Center. If you'd like to purchase in bulk, reach them on 0262 351 251. This advert is FDA approved. Ladies and gentlemen, Ghana 4, this is how we cap off the AM show this morning. From Bernice and yours truly, we say top of the morning to you. Stay tuned for Joy News Desk up next.